and welcome back to another episode of OHKO, a Pokemon VGC podcast. Especially excited for this week's episode because, first, we just love the podcast episodes, do not get me wrong, but we have a very special guest coming on this week, Wolfe Glick. First, we're going to talk a little bit about Knoxville before we bring him on. But yeah, it'll be really, really exciting. My name is Sierra Dawn. I'm one of the hosts, and I'm joined here by my co-host, Joe Brown. How you doing?
Mochi Sierra. Hope everything is going well. It's been like a day and a half since I've seen you over the weekend, but yeah, I'm doing well. I'm excited for this episode. It's going to be a fun one. I know we had fun in Knoxville, and sure we don't want to talk too long about our adventures as we get to the real meat of the show, but definitely got to let the OHKO fans know what went down in Tennessee this weekend.
This is like when you get like the double meat on your Chipotle bowl, because like there's a lot of good stuff in this weekend. You say too, like that's the real meat of the episode. I'm really excited. Do not get me wrong. But of course, coming off of a regional, there's always a lot of really exciting stuff to be talking about. And not like this format, Knoxville, just insane. I just have to say.
Yeah, this is now the third time in my life I've been to Tennessee, the wonderful state of Tennessee. 2017 Memphis Regionals, 2018 Nashville Worlds, and now this weekend in Knoxville. And maybe I should just move to Tennessee because I've had a fantastic time all three times that I've been in the state. It's a fun time. There's great food. There's a lot of fun people. It's not like sure, the airport was small, but like the city was still bustling, right? It was like a downtown city where University of Tennessee is. So it's a college town. There's a lot of food, a lot of fun things going on. Overall, it was a fantastic time. Had a lot of fun. Played in the Cube this weekend. I won 2 games in the Cube for the first time ever in my life. So Chip was very proud of me. Puka was very proud of me as well. So I got nothing when it comes to the city of Knoxville. Got nothing but positives to say. When it comes to some of the things that happened with the stream, obviously could have had some improvements, but is what it is.
We'll focus on the positives first. We'll focus on the positives. Oh, except for my one negative that I have to say is that going out for dinner on the Friday night, I forgot my food at the restaurant because I didn't eat it and I forgot it, and that was really sad. So that was the bummer to start off the trip. It sounds really dumb. I got a salmon cake burger. It looked amazing, but there was too much arugula on it for like my taste at the time because it made the burger go from this height, which would have been very manageable, to all of a sudden this height. Yeah. And I was like, I don't feel like eating this burger right now. I can't do it. I'll eat the other stuff here. This all looks good. And I will, when I am in a more like appropriate, like, you know what, I'm going to tackle this burger mood, I will eat the burger. And then I forgot it. So.
Well, you know what I had on Friday? I went to a ramen bar, and not like a ramen bar where like you sit down and eat ramen. It was a like bar, as in like a place that was served alcohol and had like stools and stuff. And instead of like chips or nachos or like pretzels or whatever as the beer food was ramen and different types of ramen and stuff. So it was a really unique blend that I don't think I ever really experienced before. So like I had a beer and ramen at my stool. It was pretty cool.
That sounds like too much.
No, it was fun.
The ramen is so much liquid. I trust.
Like, hey, at least I ate my dinner on Friday night. You know what I mean?
I was so sad. You know what I did when I got back to the hotel? I went to the hotel lobby and got 3 bags of chips for dinner. Because, like, I wasn't going to starve.
Well, you could have went in the lounge.
No, I was tired. And then I went back to my room and I fell asleep before eating any of the bags of chips. So
for everyone listening, for some random reason, I had lounge access to their fancy dancy lounge where you needed a card and like it had all these like food and drinks and stuff. I messaged some of our cast of friends. I was like, hey, come hang out in the lounge. We got, drinks and snacks and candy bars and stuff. And nobody took me up on it. The whole weekend, you could have got some free sodas, some free Snickers bars, free water.
You know what the difference was? I went in there
all the time.
You know what the difference was? You never actually messaged me.
You were in the group that I messaged, though.
No, I wasn't. There is a chat that I'm not in. So you probably posted it there.
Brutal.
So, yeah, that's actually tragic.
On free sodas,
Yeah, you let me starve, is what I'm hearing. But hey, regardless of the fact that I left my dinner at the restaurant and Joe Brown hates me, Knoxville was a great event. My biggest thing too when we get to events is how the competition shakes up, because there has been some like day twos and top eights that like there hasn't necessarily been the most storylines, and there's always the point to develop a new storyline, but you know there is some storylines that are just better than others, and I felt like this top eight was a lot of fun, especially to our finals match being between two senior world champions. Though like I didn't realize Toler's win was like 2012. He's 26. I thought he was like 22. Yeah, mind blown off that one. But yeah, two senior world champions face off, Toler Webb to take that victory there. And I mean, definitely like overdue. He made top 8 at Charlotte, just sneaking in, and then lost there. But like his performance out this weekend was fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty good stretch for Toler right now. 2 events in a row, right, with Charlotte and Knoxville. And honestly, it couldn't happen to a nicer guy. Everybody in the community absolutely loves Toler. He's just one of the nicest people you can meet. Just like if he's your opponent, win or lose, he's super nice. If he just walking through the aisles and see him at the vendors, then he'll have a nice conversation with you, and he's always energetic and excited and just happy to see. Like I had a quick conversation with him in Charlotte when I was playing and had a lot of fun with him. So I've been a huge Toler fan for many years, so I'm happy to see. I think this is his second regional title. He got one back in, I think it was like the Sun and Moon era, I want to say. Might have been the 2016 if I'm wrong, but the senior angle was really funny because 2012 was a very long time ago. As you said, he's 26 years old. And even the more you think about it with James Evans, as like most of my life that I've known him, I've thought of him as senior world champion James Evans. But that was 2018. We're 2024, Sierra. See, James is a man now. He goes to college. He's got the goatee. He wears a scarf. Like James Evans is no longer the senior I think of. He is a full-grown man, and it's really cool to see how time has passed, but you still have this unique storyline between him and Toler in the finals.
It was funny. So for dinner Sunday night, we went out, celebration dinner, was there with a few friends, and Toler and James were there, and I was talking to them because before finals, because you were SME this weekend, we're trying to think of a lower third to try and describe finals, and you mentioned like you're trying to go for like a coming of age angle or something because they were senior world champions. And I know we disagreed on the angle for that one because I think the idea was cute, but I don't think you could sum it up in the amount of words that you needed for a lower third, because I think you needed the context that they're senior world champions. And at dinner, I told him that you were trying to figure out this like coming of age twist. And that's where Toler dropped that he was 20. Toler was laughing. He dropped he was 26. And I'm like, what? So I thought it was really funny because it's like, I understand like, it does seem like if somebody does get a big achievement in like a lower age division, it is hard when you talk about, senior world champion, to still not kind of think of them in that lens in some sort of way, because that's the accomplishment you're talking about, right?
Yeah, I think sometimes a senior world champion or senior accomplishments can kind of get lost, when you become a master. Like even if you look at James when he writes his, because when they make Top Cut, right, they have them write their accomplishments down. He doesn't include every senior accomplishment he had compared to, Masters NAIC win and Masters regional top 8s. Like he puts those over his senior accomplishments because it's obviously at a different level. But like, I think like the senior angle to me, it wasn't even relevant to their age because, as you said, Toler's 26 and James is, what is he, 21 now, maybe something like that. I don't even know how old James is. But like it's an accomplishment that they have forever. It's a unique. Yeah. It's I was trying to focus on the senior aspect, not because of their age, but because this is a unique position that we can't necessarily recreate easily, right? There's only a finite amount of senior world champions, so the odds that, even if it was 25 years ago, the odds that they both are facing each other in finals, it's just, when you're trying to tell stories, right, and trying to find interesting angles to get people to care about it, like you could care because Toler and James are two of the best players in the country, right? That's a reason to care about the match. the little cherry on top, or the little caveat to why it's a more interesting finals than just a generic finals, is that they both have achieved the same heights in this game, and now they are trying to achieve the same goal yet again. At least that's my perspective on it.
I don't disagree with any of that. I just think when you're trying to write a lower third, because you know the character limits on those things.
It's so tight, yeah.
It is, you can't put much. That I understand the sentiment, and I think it's a good sentiment, because you're not wrong, because that's kind of the story that we were kind of like painting up on broadcast too. There's just not really a good lower third way to be
I did have some winners in the lower thirds this weekend, though. I was pretty proud of myself. So I didn't even know that was my job going into this weekend until I got there on Saturday, and our producer backstage was like, here's this document, you write every round, write the players, and write their storyline tag, their lower for what's relevant in this match. And the first match I had was Aaron Traylor's match, and I'm like, all right, do I put 2020 Dallas Regional Champion? What am I thinking about? And I was like, no, let's have some fun here. So I go to Lennox, and I'm like, hey, I have this idea. And like, I was really timid. Lennox is our producer, for people who don't know, wonderful guy. And I was really timid. I was nervous, like, oh, am I allowed to like mention that he does this thing with Twitter with ice cream and blah, blah, blah. And Lennox was like, just have fun. Like, he just like snapped me out of all my worries with it. He was like, we're here to have fun. You're not on the marketing team. You don't have to worry about, all these things. Like, you are here to promote the fun aspects of the game. So if you think a lower is fun, go with the fun. So that's where I got a connoisseur of various ice cream flavors. That's what I had. Kyle enjoys clicking Bleakwind Storm because all of his fun fact answers were Tornadus and Bleakwind Storm. He put it for every single thing. Like, his hero was Tornadus. Like, that
was the funniest. Like, for anyone who doesn't know, that was his lower third, and then Kyle misses Bleakwind Storm to lose the game, which is just like the most ironic of things there.
But like, that's like the fun stuff that we can have. Like, people were saying like, oh, I bet he doesn't like it anymore. And if I just put 2019 Knoxville Regional Champion, we don't have a moment like that, like how we did on social media, right? That was a moment that enjoys clicking Bleakwind Storm into losing your match because you missed Bleakwind Storm. That's a narrative that was set up because Lennox allowed me to open up and have fun there.
I don't think it was originally supposed to be the SME's job. I think
this is new to me. This was not my job before.
Well, Dawes working on the TCG end of things. That's what he retired from commentary. Now he works on the TCG line, and he writes the lower thirds for them. And he's in a different role than the SME. I think it's very valuable for someone to be involved in the game at a high level to be the one writing these, because I think this might be the first. I could be wrong on it, but I think it is the first event where the SME is writing it. And obviously, I thought the lower thirds of this event were really good because you have this insight that someone else wouldn't, right? Because we do ask players for fun facts, and almost nobody is good at putting a fun fact down about themselves. It's like, what's a fun fact? Oh, I won this event. That's not a fun fact. We can go to your Wikipedia page and see that, buddy.
What's your favorite color? What is your favorite starter Pokemon? Like, those are fun facts, not,
Yeah. What's a fun fact? Oh, see, I can't even think one about myself now. It's hard. It's hard. So it's like, it's definitely fun when you're in that role, and then you can actually do fun facts for them, because like the connoisseur of various ice creams for Trailer was so funny.
Yeah. My only regrets, I was happy with that one, but I think that was my second match was Trailer. The first match, I kept it on the up and up, and I believe that was the Justin Burns match. And my only regret was I just put like whatever his regular thing was, I can't remember, and I didn't put a regional with Toxicroak. Like, I wanted to put that so badly, but that was before I was like, no, that's not professional. People are going to be
not allowed to have fun.
Blah, blah. And then like, I was allowed to be fun after that. And then the other one with Fiona is I didn't put it in her match against Kyle because I forget what lower I put for her, but I think it was fine enough. I wanted to try to put fissures in there somewhere, but I just couldn't get the sentence to work. Like, I wanted something like efficient with landing fissures on stream or something, but like I just couldn't get the wording down. Like, I wish I came up with something fissure related for Fiona, because that would have been so funny.
It would have been like, yeah, because especially too, because she had like the luck on the stream with the fissures, because fissure, if you click and it works, right? We all got to see that iconic stream moment. And then hers and Kyle's match, there was a lot of RNG on both end of things.
Yeah.
Because people like to argue, oh, in the last couple of turns, she got lucky. But from my recollection of it, and I could be wrong, there was like a speed drop from Bleak one earlier on that was actually like pretty impactful. Like there was a couple of things that did happen on both ends, but it's been funny that for 2 events now, the talk has been like her luck on the side of things, even though it goes both ways. So
yeah. I think I remember I put for her because I couldn't think of the fidget thing. I put favorite Pokemon Lugia and Suicune because she had a Suicune there, but yeah, the Sunday, I think it was fine in the end. I think for the finals, like, you saw me, I was running around like a chicken with the head cut off. Like, I was freaking out trying to encapsulate the entire perfect moment. But I put, like, championship pedigree to senior world champions. And then our director was like, perfect. Gets the job done. Anyone just joining in now understands the stakes and the skill level of the players and stuff. So it got the job done.
Which I actually do think that's important too, because like there is all for having fun and etc. But I do think the kind of outlining like why this match is impactful, there's maybe it's not as quippy and as fun as maybe you would like it, but it's definitely true that somebody tunes in, they know exactly what's going on, which is good. Like they're world champions, give them that thing. But it kind of sounded like other parts of your weekend as the SME weren't quite as fun, which definitely made waves over Twitter as well. A lot of people got some good content out of your misfortune.
So I think this is karmic justice for what I said on Friday when I got to the venue. I said, I hope I don't make any mistakes this weekend, but if I do, at least I want to have my viral SME moment. Like we had the Sacred Fire Chien Pao that had like 3,000 likes, and you know, every time, for anyone who doesn't know, we are literally entering all 12 Pokemon, all 12 abilities, all 12 held items, and all 4 of those 12 Pokemon's moves, and all 12 Terra types, okay? Like, we are manually, hand in hand, one computer has Arcanine, one computer has the program on it. It is very stressful for the people who think like, oh, like I saw so many tweets, oh, the fact that they get these was blah, blah, blah. Like, it's a madhouse back there. Usually we have people helping too. Sometimes someone will be reading it off of it, but like, okay, Urshifu, Focus Sash, Unseen Fist, Wicked Blow, Swords Dance, Sucker, like literally just trying to get it done as fast as possible so we don't delay the stream and don't delay the event. And I would say usually sometimes things slip through the cracks. Like I think in Toronto, I think I accidentally put Focus Band or Shifu instead of Focus Sash one time. You know, things happen like that.
Yeah.
The mistakes this weekend, I want everyone to know, were absolutely not my fault. There was for anyone that was in the venue in Knoxville, there were some internet issues. It was like we were in a dungeon, and like even just trying to get your phone to work to look at the Arcanine pairings was a hassle. So there were some network connectivity issues between the computers from what I was inputting on the program to what was going to the live stream. And you can't change it. So the first time we noticed it was when I think it was Tornadus had Fake Out and Heatran had Extreme Speed. And,
Expanding Force.
Oh, sorry. Expanding Force. Right. Even worse. Yeah. So Expanding Force, Heatran. Because what had happened was the prior round, there was an Iron Crown in that slot that had Expanding Force. And so it didn't update, and there was something wrong with the connectivity of the 2 pages. And on my stream, on my page, I took photos of it for photographic evidence for when people wouldn't believe me. I had Earth Power Heatran. I didn't have Fake Out Tornadus or Fake Out Fluttermane. I did not have 2 Incineroars. It was an Urshifu on my page. Like Toler looked like he cracked the code and brought 2 Incineroars to the finals. It was an Urshifu on my page. But the issue is you can't fix the graphics mid-game because you have to close out of it and go back in, so it just shuts everything down. It's a whole hassle. So anytime an issue like that came up, we just had to sit there, wait for the match to end, and then go back. So for everybody, I think the memes were great. I'm happy people had fun with it on the internet. Like, like even Jake tweeted like new meta, Fake Out Fluttermane, and all these things. Like I'm happy people had their fun, but just so they know, like it was an Urshifu on my screen. It was Earth Power Heatran on my screen. It was not like I was not consciously trying to create random new metas and random new Pokemon. It was just, I guess, a happy little accident that people found it funny.
It was so funny. I felt bad for you too, because like as a caster, like you don't know when it's a network issue as opposed to your SME just having a silly, goofy day, right? So realistically, if we're casting or even if we're off and we see one of the mistakes, we call it out in the Discord, right?
You tag me, yeah.
Yeah, because realistically, this event, it was network issues, but there has been events where there just has been a mistake that slipped through the cracks. Understandable. Sure. You're inputting all these different things for all 12 Pokemon super quickly. So totally makes sense. But I felt so bad because we kept calling things out and it kept being like, it's not our fault, it's not our fault. And it's like, I understand but I have to call it out in case it is your fault.
I never got mad at you guys for tagging me and being like, oh, wrong item on Fluttermane or Incineroar or whatever. Like, because I understood you guys don't know if it's the network issue or if it's my issue. But like, I don't know. There were some times, especially in the finals, was like, yes, I promise you, I wasn't intending for it to be Throat Spray Golden Go. Like, it was a Farigiraf in that slot the previous game, and the held item was not updating on the graphics. Like I promise you, I didn't think Toler had 2 Incineroars. Like, so some of the tags going my way, I was like, I promise, guys, I feel just as hopeless as you do in this moment, seeing 2 Incineroars on the screen and knowing there's nothing I can do about it in the moment except for wait till we get in game so I can fix it. Like, that was the worst feeling.
I only tagged you in ones that could have actually messed up. I think I tagged you for a Life Orb Golden Go, and it's like, that could be a mistake, you know?
For sure.
But I can definitely understand.
It really was hopeless backstage because like we knew it wasn't our fault and we just had to sit there and watch everyone think that, like, wow, production's so bad they think Toler has 2 Incineroars. Like, no, I promise you we didn't.
It was good content. But I know with you watching backstage as well, I finally got to do Pokemon Stadium mini games with a proper controller. And I was getting robbed. I got the first mini game right off the rip. And then the next 3 mini games were not, oh, if you win it, you get points. It was, if you win, you get to steal 2 coins from the leader. And I was the only one who had coins.
They were gunning for you. Yeah.
3 games, I was winning them. And it was just, I wasn't getting any further ahead. It was just not letting other people steal my coins. And yeah, it was brutal.
Yeah. So one, I think, it might have been a Guinness World Record for the longest Pokemon Stadium game of all time because you guys had to play for, I don't know what was going on between the final round and the start of top 8, but it was taking a while. So you guys had to play Pokemon Stadium for quite a bit. I give you credit for that.
Well, at least the computer kept ripping me off, so it worked out time-wise because we filled that segment forever. And it wasn't like we actually came to a definitive, you are the champion screen. Like, I was declared the winner because I had 5 coins. In comparison to everyone else's 4 or whatever it was. So I had the most coins, and by the time the production told us we had to, like, stop it. But, like, oh my goodness. Also, can I just say, because I love looking at Twitch comments. I don't get, like, really personally bothered by them. So it's, like, I like looking through them, seeing what people say. But I just, like, I find it astonishing the amount of people that do not understand that we're stalling for time. Like, people are, like, I came here for matches. Brother, you don't think that we're here to cast matches? Like, I'm having fun with the Pokemon Stadium games, do not get me wrong, but, like, do you not think that we would rather be casting a match right now? Like, we fill this time because there is something in the tournament. We don't run the tournament. And it was just crazy. Like, people were so mad about it. People are so mad about the Pokemon Stadium mini games. And it was like, do you want to just be on, like, a break screen next time? Like, I genuinely don't understand what they want from us. We cannot start the match.
Yeah, shockingly, people don't really use their brains on the internet because, it's just, they just constantly, where's the match? It's like saying, like, or I said, I promise you, I don't think Golden Go had Throat Spray. Like, I promise you, if we had a match ready to go, we would be showing the match instead of Pokemon Stadium. Like, just people got to use a little bit of logic in the head, like, oh man, they're doing this side content. Maybe it's because the main content is not ready yet.
Yeah, and, like, so that one just bothers me on a whole, like, thing. Like, I just, it's just like a little, but, like, another one too is people are, And this one, I could understand why people bring this one up. But people always be like, why can't you just start streaming another match midway through? If we all of a sudden have a quick 2-all on stream during our Swiss, why can't you just cut to another game? First off, I don't think people realize the equipment that goes into it. And it is terrible for tournament and competitive integrity if like somebody finishes their first 2 games and we're like, okay, you guys have to actually pick up all of your stuff, stop what you're doing, go to the stage, plug back in. It might be a 10-minute turnaround so we can stream your game. That is terrible for the competitive aspect of it. And my thing as well is looking at the tournaments and any sort of decisions is I always like to look at it the lens of what has the best competitive integrity. That ain't it. That isn't it. As well, it's actually not great for a casting experience either because people say they want to see those games. But if we cast a best of 3 that is 2 games and then we cut to a third game of a completely different set, we actually don't know anything that's going on. We'll have not seen the team sheets. We have not seen the first 2 games. We don't have any of the prior context to give that game proper justice. So then you're swapping out then this whatever else we're filling time with a game that can't actually be given the proper justice, the proper casting, and is not actually that great. I know people want to see more games, but there's just so many different roadblocks to it that until they have multiple different stream setups. What I would love to see is when you have like the ICs or like worlds where they have those side TVs, if there's any connectivity for that
would be
even
cool.
If you have it as something that's not as a casted experience, but like you have like the music and then just have the game playing, that would be cool. But I don't think at a regionals there's ever going to be a way that it makes sense logistically.
Yeah, it'd be tough for them to try to set that up at the tables at the way they do at Worlds. But while we're talking about the games here, let's get into the games and let's start recapping Knoxville for our viewers here. So we had some great games on stream this weekend. Obviously, Fiona and Kyle's match, Aaron Traylor's match, Avery making top 8 and putting up a great fight against Justin Tang in what was that, round 13 or something like that?
13, I believe.
Yeah, like we had some great Pokemon this weekend, I think.
No, 100%. Though looking back at it, like I'm astonished with how things are shaking up for like Knoxville and just our meta so far. So one of the things that we always do with the competition is what's going to be the most winningest Pokemon. We started doing like the Twitch polls for that. And shockingly, Ogerpon took Fluttermane down. Even more shockingly, Ogerpon actually took Fluttermane down in our official usage, and not like those days where it was like, oh, Flutter's at 50% and Iron Hands is at 54%. No, 66% Ogerpon Wellspring in day 2 to 62% of Fluttermane in day 2. Like, that's incredible.
That's 2/3. Literally, let's say there was like 40-something people that made day 2. That's 2/3 of all players in day 2 understood and realized that Ogerpon Wellspring was actually more valuable than Fluttermane. And if you just even isolate it to top 8, right, Sierra? We have, looking at top 8 right now, 6 Ogerpon Wellsprings, 6 Fluttermane, 4 Lando Eyes, 4 Raging Bolts, 5 Urshifu Single Strike. Like, unless, technically they're the same icon, so maybe one of them might be Raging Strike as I'm looking at it, but regardless, 5 Urshifus that, like, there's clearly there are some haves and have-nots in the meta right now when you look at that top 12 graphic.
Want to talk have-nots? Like Rapid Striker Shifu. Day 1, 26.6% Rapid Striker Shifu, 25.1 Single Strike. Day 2, 38.1 Single Striker Shifu. Rapid Strike's gone. It actually completely fell off of the chart. Like, that is... Like, Rapid Striker Shifu went from winning, like, 2 events back-to-back to just being completely decimated, gone in our day 2 usage.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think it was also missing from day 2 in Liverpool the week prior, so I think that was the first time it wasn't on the graphic in Scarlet and Violet history since Regulation D. But there's just literally so many things about Knoxville just absolutely fascinating.
Rillaboom also fell off. Actually, right. Rillaboom's not one that I look at, but it was 25% day 1, and it fell off on day 2.
So yeah, at least 13% or less, because 14 is our bottom on day 2, top 12. But look at some of the other things, like like day one usage, 25% of the field brought a Farigiraf to the event. Like, obviously that is completely on the rise. 17% with Gouging Fire. James Evans made finals with Gouging Fire. Like, that kind of came out of nowhere this weekend. You know, I think credits to you, and someone else had Gouging Fire on their predictions.
Me and I think it was Jake.
Yeah, so like this meta is, I don't know if it's like, I don't know if the meta is adapting or evolving, or if it's just changing. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if this is better than the meta at Portland or Charlotte to say. It's just different, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's kind of just like the equaling out. So if I am correct in this, this is going to be the first format that's 4 months in comparison to the 3-month rotation. So I've been getting for a while. And I do think that it takes for time for a format to kind of settle in. And when you get into a 3-month format, this would be the point right now where people would already start getting leaks on what the next format is going to be and start practicing that. Especially too, since we do have events that we don't, our next event is 6 weeks away, Vancouver.
Yep.
So people, we'd realistically be looking at one more event in Reg F if it was a 3-month rotation, and people would be moving on to the next thing. Since that isn't the case, we still have Vancouver, Orlando, and EUIC. There's actually a reason to be putting thought into the format and have it evolve a little bit more. And I think that's kind of part of it as well. Because even Liverpool, we got to see teams that were more slowing things down. We got to see Ting Lu. And Ting Lu definitely wasn't absent from this week as well. I mean, you called out Avery. Avery had this Ting Lu, this trying to remember the other Pokemon offhand.
Porygon, Komo-o.
Yeah, the Porygon 2, the Komo-o. And like those are like slower setup Pokemon. And getting a top 8 finish and just not the only person bringing it to this event. There's actually a lot that can be going on. I have to call out this fact too. This is not any part of the meta healing. This is just life in Pokemon healing. But Len, 9th place with Garchomp,
yes.
Lycanroc, Tyranitar. That's just VGC is healing moment type there.
I was so proud of Len this weekend. He played so well, completely very strong performance on stream in his victory match. And then unfortunately lost to Justin in round 14, Justin Tang, and then bubbled at 9th. Like, oh, what could have been, Sierra? Maybe Len ends up facing Toler in the finals or something if he doesn't bubble.
I just have to say, I think we should get rid of resistance. We should make a benchmark depending on how many people are in an event. And if you hit that number, you make it. Because Len bubbled out at 11-3. Joseph Agarte bubbled out at 11-3. Yunchi Zhu, I'm so sorry if I said that wrong, bubbled out at 11-3. So that was 3 people that were like technically just as good as those 11-3s. Nora, Avery, Luca, Enrique, and Toler. Top 8. They technically had the same record. But when it goes off of opponent's resistance and opponent's resistance, then, I think that's a little bit tough. And I don't necessarily have the perfect solution. I feel like if you just kind of extend it, like, everyone gets it. And, if it's an uneven bracket, top seed gets a bye or whatever, I'd be cool with that. But I do think it's a shame that that's a lot of money and points on the line for, just opponent's resistance.
Yeah, it's obviously a bummer. When you are in the 9th or 10th or 11th place perspective, I understand why resistance is so frustrating to deal with, and maybe this is a conversation for another time. But like when you say they played just as well as the other 11-3s, it's like, well, there is a statistic, there is data to show that they didn't, right? You might not like that data. You might say we shouldn't use that data as evidence or reason to why someone would move on. I think that's a legitimate criticism, but there is data to suggest that they did not play as well as the others.
So the little counter argument to this, which this doesn't happen as often. This was actually a really situation, but Joseph Agarte got down paired not once but twice on day 2 of Swiss. To get down paired twice, he actually had pretty decent resistance, and then that is completely gone at that point. And that's just a pairings thing. There is actually quite a few pairings that because for the win and in, Len got up paired. I think Kyle on a win and in or the final round got down paired. So it all depends on how the standings kind of shake up for the day. Like the down pairs, the up pairs, they do happen. But if you get down paired twice, it doesn't matter how well you do. Your resistance is done. You're just at the mercy of the Arcanine gods, and the Arcanine gods said, "Not today, buddy." Like, simple as that. You won the matches. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, that stinks. Obviously, Joe's gonna bounce back. Len's gonna bounce back. Len had a great weekend. He had a great interview on stream. Everybody loved his lower third as well. Tyranitar Garchomp loyalist succeeds in Knoxville. So
I want to see Len's team again. I think the fact that he's had it forever has been absolutely hilarious. But if we're going to be talking about people that statistically have won a lot and have done a bunch of things, that was the worst segue I've ever done in my life.
You're doing great.
But we do have a very special guest on for today's episode. Of course, our Charlotte Regional Champion, also 2016 World Champion, and a fluent YouTuber, Wolf Glick. So let's bring him on now. All right, everyone, and welcome back. We have none other than Wolf Glick with us. Wolf, how are you doing? I'm honestly so glad you could join us.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I think the podcast is really cool. I've listened to some episodes before, so yeah, it's cool to be here.
We have a world champion listener.
Gonna put that in the Twitter bio from now on.
I definitely saw y'all talking about Charlotte, and I clicked super fast. I was like, "Give me the breakdown. Give me the analysis."
Yeah.
My goodness. Well, I'm definitely glad, because we're definitely going to be talking about stuff about Charlotte, other things just about, your career as a YouTuber and this competitive Pokemon player. First off, how have you been feeling since the win? I know that you then skipped out on Knoxville. Did you get to watch Knoxville at all, or?
I watched a little bit of Knoxville. I watched some of top 4, and definitely I watched finals, and I watched a couple sets. I guess I couldn't watch day 1 because I was streaming with Magmar. Yeah, because my friends were on stream and I couldn't watch. But I've watched a couple matches. I went back and watched Trailer set on stream versus Kazuki. So I would say I've probably seen about 40% of what was streamed. But yeah, no, I'm doing really well. Yeah, I think that every year, listen, I'm going to tell you a little secret, okay? Every year I tweet out, at the new year, I tweet out, past year was for suckers, current year is for wolves. And I do it every year. So, it's not always right. But I think that, I don't want to jinx it. I'm going to knock on wood. I think this year might actually be for wolves. I feel like January hit and things have been going really well for me. So, in the game, out of the game, things are going well. So, I'm feeling good, honestly.
Let's go. I mean, it started on a high point. I mean, you take a break for a bit, you come back, just casually win the largest regional of all time for the second time, which is also just absurd in itself. But I wanted to then, you say the years for the Wolves. Do you feel like for Charlotte, it was you just felt like you had it and that was good? Or do you just kind of feel like this year going on forward, we've gotten to the point in Scarlet and Violet with Terastallization that you're just really feeling comfortable with this? It's just an entire format.
Probably my favorite thing about how I felt about Charlotte, kind of not just the Pokemon itself, but the kind of mental and emotional piece, was that I didn't feel like I was, performing, so far above my norm. It kind of just felt like I was taking games one turn at a time, one game at a time, and just doing my best to win. And so, I actually think that helped me a lot in Charlotte. For Charlotte, I didn't feel the pressure that I normally feel, and I didn't feel the kind of the stakes and everything. I was really just okay, how do I win this game, right? How do I win this set? And I think that actually worked really in my favor. I think also for Charlotte, I feel oftentimes I feel a lot of pressure to kind of come in with this. I feel for tournaments, pressured to play and to do things in a way that is close to perfect, where if you play the tournament over and over and over again, I always win. That's always the standard that I'm striving for. It's not just a victory, it's a victory that is assured, right? Because I think that's probably because of growing up when Ray was at the peak, and Ray was the thing that we were all kind of chasing, and Ray's win, 3 wins in a row is just wild. And so I always felt if I want to be winning, I need to be perfect. And I feel for this tournament, I wasn't trying to be perfect. I was just trying to be great. And I feel that helped me a lot. So I don't think if you play Charlotte over and over again, I win every time. But I think that actually maybe that mentality causes me to win more often than striving for something else, paradoxically.
Well, I think it's so interesting with how your team and how your Charlotte run played out that I know there were many people, myself included, that as soon as you won, people were starting to say, "Oh, I can't wait for the event recap. I can't wait for the upload on YouTube." And your videos are phenomenal. They're so well produced and incredibly well edited that if they're an hour long, they just breeze by. Like when Wolf makes an event recap, like it's an event. Like you got to watch it. So, were you in the moment, like round 7, round 8, maybe round 14, top 8, top 4, in the moment where you're like, oh man, I better get this recap ready, or oh, I got to include this round in the recap, or oh, this turn was so crazy. Like when you're playing at events, are you thinking about the post-event recap, or are you just too focused in the moment?
So it's a good question. At Charlotte, I was only focused in the moment, but that isn't the norm for me. And I think that it really, really helped me to kind of like stay energized. Like I have never felt so not exhausted at the end of a day of Pokemon than I did at Charlotte, which is wild because I played way more Pokemon than, at least on day 2, way more than normal, right? And so I think a big part of that was that I wasn't really thinking about kind of the bigger picture implications. What I normally do is in the matches themselves, I'm just focused on the matches. But after a match, what I try and do is I write down turn by turn every single thing that happened. So I finish the match and then I go to my Discord server that I have with my editor, and I have a little channel in there that's like Wolf battle notes. So I say like Charlotte round 1, like turn 1, this, turn 2, this. And I typically can't keep that up for the whole tournament because it's a lot easier. Obviously it takes time and energy and you kind of have to rethink through every turn, which is difficult, but especially in 3-game sets, like you don't always have the time before the next round for that to be a good investment. So so I like try to take the notes and just so I have them. It'd be awesome if I could record. Like that would save me so much time and energy, to be honest. But yeah, no, I basically try to do it as long as I feel like it's not taking away from competing. And as soon as I feel like, oh, like maybe I'd rather use this time just to rest, or like, oh, I don't really have time for this, then I just switch to just focusing on the tournament.
You wish it'd be like back in the day where Aaron had his laptop next to his seat at the.
I just wish we had the versus recorder, dog. Like if we just had like just the versus recorder, my life would be so much easier.
Fingers crossed soon, because I feel like a replay would be so much better for everyone involved. But you're talking about competing and all this extra stuff that you have to do for content. How do you find that you're able to best balance that as well? Because being a full-time YouTuber and having such a successful channel, that is a lot of work. Also, the amount of time people put in to be at the top of this game is a lot of work, and you're managing to do both at the time.
Yeah, I think that like I'm lucky in the sense that I have had some time to figure things out. I actually think that so I quit my job to do full-time YouTube right before the pandemic, like late February 2020. And like I feel so lucky to be able to do what I do. Like I really, really enjoy being able to be a content creator. I think I found ways to really make it work for me. But being self-employed comes with a lot of challenges. Like I'm not naturally somebody who like is drawn to structure. I'm not somebody who naturally, like I would say that one of my biggest struggles kind of growing up was discipline, because I was always really like fast at things. I never like needed to be disciplined to get things done, which of course, eventually caught up to me. And so yeah, I think that basically the things that I think let me kind of do both are like having a really good structure and routine. I think that's part of it, like being able to like know how I work best as a YouTuber and being able to kind of invest the time and like have the just structure in order to like know what it takes to get work done, have good expectations for like how when I need to be finishing videos, how long things are going to take, stuff like that. And I think also like I'm really lucky in that even though I'm obviously a Pokemon YouTuber, right? And obviously my channel is very focused on VGC. However, like the actual skills that I use when playing VGC are very different than the skills I use when making a YouTube video. On a YouTube video, I mean, most of my videos, almost all of them nowadays are scripted in the sense that they're video essay style videos, right? And so that really uses my skills as like a writer and a storyteller, which is just very, very different than trying to win a VGC match. So I think that's part of it, is that like it helps me to not feel burnt out, because VGC and working on a YouTube video feel very different to me. I think also, I mean, obviously taking breaks, right? I think that is the secret, at least to my longevity as a VGC player, because there's not that many of us from 2011 who are still around and playing nowadays. And I just feel like it is like VGC is a really hard game because the result is often, I would even say, not proportional to the time that you put in, right? You can work so hard for so long and get like, a finish that you're really, really unhappy with, a finish even outside of what your norm is, right? And I think that's just like, it's really difficult to put a lot of time in and then not see the results that you want all the time. And so I think that when you're starting to feel, at least when I'm starting to feel burnt out and exhausted and like like the game is becoming not so fun to me, that I've always been really good at taking a step back and taking a break. And I think that really allows me to have fun when I play and have it not feel like work or an obligation or something. Also, I'm so sorry for being so long-winded.
That's okay.
I swear, every time I talk, I'm like, Wolf, you have to get to the point faster. You have to be briefer, and I just cannot do it.
I'm gonna level with you. Anyone who's listening right now, out of the three of us, I think you're the one they want to hear from most.
Exactly.
And then it's a tie between me and Joe Brown, who they'd rather least listen to. All right, so we're good on this one.
Don't worry. This is take your time. However you want to answer anything. I did want to ask you about your team in Charlotte though, because I don't know if you saw the memes where it showed like your Players Cup win team and then your Charlotte
I really like that.
win, and so like you had Incineroar, Rillaboom, or Shifu, and then like Colossal,
fire type.
A different fire type became the Ogre Pod and everything. Like, so is that a conscious play style when you're playing? It's like, I want Fire, Water, Grass and a Fake Out and a fire nuke on the team and a specific, priority, things like that, maybe a trick room option, or did it just accidentally end up like it had a similar archetype?
I would say it's actually, I think, a mix of both. Like, I definitely was not thinking about the Players Cup 2 team during building. But I think that like I really build in a way that I focus a lot on fundamentals, like what I believe are kind of like the building blocks of any good team, right? And a lot of the things that I value there are things like intimidate and things like, having good defensive typing and having like, fake out and having, Pokemon that are fast and do good damage, right? And so a lot of the similarities between the teams, I mean, first of all, Incineroar, Rillaboom, and Urshifu was just an incredible core, both defensively and offensively, so it's not surprising to me to see it like thrive in multiple generations. But with regard to the other stuff, I think it's like I kind of just followed my principles and ended up in similar spots, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I just thought it was just so funny when you see it back to back, because I've always thought of it too. And then the big change that you had on your Ogre Pond that I thought was really interesting was having access to Grassy Glide, where so many other people, we saw your Wolf. We saw Joe and Riley running Follow Me the whole Regulation E.
Yeah.
And now you switched up in Regulation F. And I feel like you kind of brought Ogre Pond back, or Hearthflame back to where it was supposed to be. Because like I thought the Follow Me never made, like, Follow Me is better on the water one and the rock one, more defensive Pokemon. But Ogre Pond Hearthflame gives himself an attack boost. Rillaboom has a Grassy Glide boost as well. Like, I think you brought Hearthflame back to where it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I think Ogre Pond Hearthflame is really strong, but because it's more offensive, it's much more reliant on your positioning. You know what I mean? I think it was also like Hearthflame Ogre Pond is really strong, but Follow Me wasn't so good on my team because I already had the dual fake out users, and that meant that if I positioned like Ogre Pond next to a fake out user, it just didn't really get the Follow Me value. Whereas with Swords Dance, actually Swords Dance is a really cool move in part because like obviously you can boost your attack and that's really good, but it also really influences how opponents play. So one of like the things that I had a lot of success with over the weekend is I would lead with, especially in the Gouging Fire teams, I would lead with Ogre Pond Hearthflame and Incineroar, and they would often lead Gouging Fire and Ogre Pond Wellspring, but it works with like a ton of different Pokemon as well. And because the threat of fake out one Pokemon in Swords Dance is so scary, so many people felt pressure to attack with both their Pokemon to ensure that like Swords Dance didn't go up for free. So I like won many games by just going fake out into the Gouging Fire, Terra Fire, Ivy Cudgel, and KOing a Pokemon turn 1. And with a lead that big, like you basically get a KO for free. The Gouging Fire is -1. You're up a Pokemon. You like have all this offensive pressure. It's really hard for people to come back from. Yeah, and I think that like just the more I played with the team, the more I understood that like it's interesting having a move like Swords Dance. It doesn't only like work like for the actual move itself, but it also influences how the opponents play. And it's even without the kind of like Incineroar Ogre Pond setup. People just don't like to protect in front of Swords Dance Ogre Pond Hearthflame because the opportunity cost if you're wrong is just so high. And so I was it really allowed me to play really aggressively with Ogre Pond Hearthflame. And I think I really capitalized on that. So yeah, I think Swords Dance is really cool, not just for the boost itself, but also for the threat of the boost.
See, what I find really interesting is obviously the Hearthflame Ogre Pond is really strong. You had the Rapid Strike Urshifu, and this is a team that, hey, it won 2 events back to back. It won Charlotte, and then it also won Liverpool. And then all of a sudden we saw the biggest 180, and all of a sudden it's 66% usage of the Wellspring Ogre Pond. Rapid Strike Urshifu completely off of the chart, and it's like 30% the single Strike Urshifu. So like, I'd love to know just even both your guys' takes on just how drastically things are swapping for like these alternate forms, because obviously they are technically the same Pokemon. It's just which form you want to go for and how things just so quickly switched up and which was the better.
I'm curious on your take, Joe, before I share my opinion.
Well, my take is Ray Rizzo was right, like he always is, because he said Water Ogerpon was the best form. So this was in September, so when everybody was just running, Max Attack and Fire Ogerpon on Tailwind teams, he was like, no, the utility that Water Absorb gives you and Follow Me and everything. I think it's a good thing that Ogerpon Wellspring is the best of the four, because it doesn't negate other Pokemon the way that some of the other some of the other prominent legendary Pokemon do in the game. I don't think Ogerpon does that. For example, Ogerpon Wellspring, you are still very weak to Tornadus teams and some other things like that. So the fact that it dethroned Fluttermane, I think it makes sense, as I think as a player who had both of them on my Charlotte team, I was very much more willing to bring a Ogerpon Wellspring to my match than I was a Fluttermane. Like, Fluttermane was very matchup dependent, where it seemed like it was Ogerpon Wellspring and 3 other Pokemon were what my 4 were every single game. Yeah. So I love that it's such a strong Pokemon, because it's not broken, because there are a lot of counters to it.
Yeah, I think that's very, very fair. My take on the format as a whole is that right now it's an extremely wide format, in that, like, there are so many different archetypes that are viable. In Charlotte on day 1, I played 9 different archetypes, like distinctly different. Like, I played, Arcaludon Rain, I played Sun, I played like weird Trick Room, I played Blood Moon, Ursaluna, Tailwind, Farigiraf stuff. Like, there were all these different compositions. And so my take on the format as a whole is that this is not a format about finding the one team that beats everything else. It's instead about finding a team with good tools into a lot of what you expect to play against and getting really, really good at using it. And I think that's actually the success of my Charlotte team. I don't think that team was better than, like, such a huge percent of the other teams there. I think it was really solidly constructed, and I think it gave me, like, I always got to play the game. I didn't play any matchups where I was like, oh, team preview, I lose, And I think that's really important. And I think we're seeing that reflected in the usage stats as well, where, like, Ogerpon Wellspring being the number 1 Pokemon makes some sense to me, because it's Follow Me is always useful, right? There's never a matchup where you're like, oh, like, Follow Me is going to be bad. And the defense of Terra, like, not only removing some of your weaknesses, like to poison and flying and stuff, but also giving the special defense boost and giving you an offensive boost. It's just like, like, Ogerpon Wellspring has just a really nice matchup spread, especially because, as you pointed out, or like implicitly pointed out, like, it's so good into Urshifu Water, who's such a scary Pokemon and such a difficult Pokemon to deal with otherwise. And so, yeah, I think it's, like, not so shocking to see it at the top of the usage charts with Fluttermane. Like, all the Pokemon that are up there right now are kind of Pokemon that just are, like, generally strong. Like, you can bring them in almost any matchup, right? I think about Rillaboom, I think about Incineroar, Amoonguss, Urshifu Dark, right? These are, Fluttermane, right? Like, there's like, Fluttermane defensively, it's not good in every matchup, but if you position it offensively, right, and you're like, okay, here's some Moonblast, here's some Dazzling Gleam, like, if you don't get rid of this in 3 turns, I'm doing 300% damage, it's always gonna be useful. So I think that the usage stats are kind of reflecting the ability of Pokemon to be strong against the field, personally.
And I want to ask too, then, with how you think that your team kind of been having all these different tools kind of adapts going on forward in the meta, because we got to see a lot of things that kind of were standing up a lot. Blood Moon, Ursaluna, all these different size spam Trick Room teams do really good one event, and all of a sudden they've not quite fallen off. I don't want to quite say that's the word, but obviously, like, it seems like we're progressing quite quickly through the meta, even though it is still a lot of the same Pokemon that are being used. Do you think it's already at a point where the Charlotte team is already kind of losing traction, maybe? Or is it just this is kind of the new flavor of the week with what we saw in Knoxville, and it's not outdated, it's just like the Knoxville wasn't necessarily maybe the event?
Yeah, I don't think it's a team where you're getting, like, a huge team advantage over other people. Like I said, there are some pretty, like, even though I worked really hard to like prioritize the fundamentals, there are really difficult matchups because I wasn't able to do things perfectly. Like, for example, having half of your team be fire or grass is actually, like, pretty difficult. Like hitting opposing fire types was actually really hard for my team, because Fluttermane, Ogerpon, Incineroar, and Rillaboom can't do it very easily. Like, Assault Vest Entei was really challenging because well, yeah, like none of my Pokemon could hit it very easily. And so I think that it was like I basically was at an advantage in Charlotte, and I think this really worked in my favor. And that in pretty well, like I never played a matchup where they had practiced more against my team than I had practiced against theirs. Like I always had the experience advantage. I always knew what Pokemon like I should bring. I always knew like what are the kind of long term goals of the match that I'm aiming for. And I think that kind of helped me to gain the play advantage because I just had this inherent advantage. But now that the team is more widely known, like I personally probably wouldn't use it again without changes if I were trying to seriously win a tournament because yeah, also I mean Ogerpon Wellspring being even higher, like I think it was at like 40 something percent of teams in Charlotte, maybe it was higher, but now it like you should effectively expect to play against it on almost all like in almost all matchups, like it's over 2/3 I think. And having Urshifu Water is like a little bit like spooky against that. Like I mean obviously it can beat it, and I don't even think Urshifu Water's matchup with a Scarf is so bad into Ogerpon, but it's also like not the easiest Pokemon. So yeah, I think I think the team could win again. Like I would have said this after Charlotte, so then to see it win in Liverpool I think shows that the team is well built and does have a lot of tools, but I think it really just requires very good play. And yeah, I think the kind of surprise factor being gone and people having experience against it probably makes it a lot more difficult. So I mean I wouldn't personally expect it to win another event, but if it did win another event I wouldn't be so shocked either.
Now, I do want to fast forward to Knoxville here. As you were a spectator, you saw Toler Webb come down with the championship there. Played fantastically, and also a completely different archetype than what he played and got top 8 in with Charlotte. So I'm sure you've had events like closely, back to back, or that was what, 2 events in 3 weekends, right? Where how would you handle having 2 back-to-back, quote-unquote, events using completely different archetypes? Are you practicing both at once, and then you choose which one you like more for Charlotte, and then you save the second one for later? Or do you not even touch the second team until after Charlotte is done? Like, how do you handle events when we have so many in, Portland to Charlotte to Knoxville in a 5-week stretch?
Yeah, so I mean everybody does it differently. I'm really bad at multitasking. I cannot work on multiple teams at the same time. So when I'm in that position, what happens is I'm working for, Charlotte, maybe if I'm Toler, I'm building the Psy Spam team, whatever. Like I get top 8 and I'm like, I actually didn't like this team that much. Like let me think about what I learned from the event and let me start fresh,
Yeah.
That's how I would do it. Some people I think can work on multiple teams, multiple concepts at the same time. It's just not like for me to really be working on a team, it takes kind of full focus. I need to be fully invested. I need to really be thinking through all of the problems that come with like team building and how I want to solve them. And so, yeah, like I personally can't work on multiple teams at the same time, but I know that some people can.
I want to go back to just the fact that Toler here won Knoxville. I feel like this season, just in general, has been really, really cool because we've gotten to see people who have been in the game for a while. Obviously, former. Yeah, I know, right? Former world champion on his end as well. And even just looking through like the regional champions from this year, last year was really, really cool in the fact we got multiple first-time regional attenders then winning events. Justin Tang winning 2. But this year has been all about the old head. So I'm kind of curious what you think about this and the fact that we have so many people that are obviously skilled at the game, but actually really being able to show up and prove it in comparison to, we didn't see that quite as much last year coming out.
Yeah, I think it makes some sense because, like experience in Pokemon doesn't matter as much as it does in other games, in my opinion, because the skills that you need like differ pretty significantly from generation to generation. I mean, every generation there are players who like were dominating the prior generation, then it switches, and then they have a really hard time keeping up. And so I think when a generation resets, it's kind of a reset for the player base as well, right? Like, I mean, obviously you still have players doing well, but it's not like me having over 10 years of experience going into Scarlet and Violet didn't help me with Terra skill set. You know what I mean? Like we'd never been able to change Pokemon before. The same was true of Dynamax. The same was true, I would say, true of Z moves, even though gems are kind of similar. Like these are all new mechanics, but I mean, I think that it makes some sense in theory that the longer we go into a generation, the more that kind of old knowledge becomes relevant, and the more the new knowledge gets kind of like condensed, right? Where like maybe some players are really quick to figure out terrestrialization, and you would expect that to be kind of evenly distributed across, new and old, right? Because it's a new mechanic. But also, like, I mean, I kind of feel this way about Incineroar, which is like, the new players, like, they don't have any experience against Incineroar. You know what I mean? Like, they don't have any experience with like 20 turn, 2017 Porygon 2, like toxic, this kind of like slow play style. I thought it was funny to see Alex and Alex Gomez and Eric Rios's team, which was very reminiscent in some ways of a 2017 kind of like gradually choke you out kind of team. And I think that all of this old experience that like newer players just don't have, and they'll get it, they'll figure it out. But like, I mean, you have me piloting this like Incineroar, Rillaboom, Urshifu core versus somebody who has never played a game with these Pokemon before. You know what I mean? Like, there's gonna be a lot of things that you kind of like learn over time with the positioning, with like the way the damage trades go down, with like the like speed order of the Pokemon and how that affects things, the moves that are optimal, right? So I think that definitely, especially in this format with like a lot of these kind of big returning Pokemon coming back and being relevant, even though we do have a lot of new Pokemon as well, like Raging Bolt and Ogerpon, whatever. But like, yeah, even still, I think that like that experience that we all have doesn't go away. It's just not always easy to access, but it's still there.
I think it's funny how you're like, the kids these days, they don't know how good they got it with their iPads.
They don't. They're like, they don't remember. Stack Attacker versus Stack Attacker. They have no idea what we suffered through.
Yeah, they don't remember when Golduck was the best Rain Sweeper, or when Reuniclus was the best Trick Room in Gen 5. Like, they don't understand what we ventured through for them to just click Tailwind Surging Strikes every game.
Yeah, Bleak Wind Storm. Yeah, back in my day, kids had to click Hurricane if they wanted to get lucky with Tornadoes.
It is funny though, because like
they were using acrobatics, if we're gonna be completely honest.
Oh, that's true. Like, it is different skills, and I guess that's why like Justin Tang and Semper and other like newer players can, I guess, catch up in the skill gap so quickly. Because my understanding from a lot of other Pokemon players is that VGC and Pokemon specifically has a lot of legacy skill, where your the value that you had playing Gen 5, Dragon Gem Latios mirror matches and acrobatic mirror matches, like that helps you be prepared for future matchups and future years when you have it. So why do you think it's different?
What is Dragon Gem? Like, I mean, Dragon Gem Latios is a great example. For anyone who doesn't know, Dragon Gem Latios was like the Pokemon of 2012. The entire format was kind of built around it. It's a one-time choice specs, and Draco Meteor was 140 base power. There was no fairy types, so Pokemon like Heatran and Scizor and like most steel, like those were the good steel types. They were still switching in and taking over 50% easily, if not more. So, but I don't really think that a lot of those skills are very relevant anymore. When I think about each individual format, I mean, all of the Z move skills, right? Baiting out Z moves, like getting a Z move into a protect, getting a Z move into an immunity. Also, all of the closed team sheet skills, which is the vast majority of how VGC was played until, I started playing in 2011, so that's 13 years ago. And for 11 of those, we were playing closed team sheet, which is a totally different format. I don't think that they translate super well at all, and I think it's really only the very high level stuff that does translate. But I don't actually think it's like format specific stuff that's translating. Occasionally, like, you'll run into a Pokemon that isn't as popular. Like, I think Landorus Incarnate is a great example where like that's a Pokemon that often isn't popular, but if you're seeing Landorus Incarnate for the first time, or like if you're like, oh, looking for Pokemon with opportunities, you're more likely to look at some of these old Pokemon. Volcarona is another one where it goes in and out of usage, but like there were years where it was amazing. But I don't really think that a lot of the specific Pokemon knowledge translates too much, aside from when those exact Pokemon are relevant again, like Incineroar and Rillaboom and stuff. But yeah, I think it's mostly kind of the higher level stuff, like the thinking about the game, the working on your processes, the macro skills. I think definitely translate, but I think that's not something that a lot of players really kind of like. I don't think a lot of players think about the game on a super macro level, so I don't think it's like that relevant across the board, to be honest.
Because like my counterpoint to it would be that obviously I feel as if 2016, all of the matches and all the preparation, all the time that you spent playing that format and learning how to set up Geomancy and how to deny your opponent's Geomancy, whether it's Hitmontop as your fake out user or Weavile compared to Incineroar in future generations, like those skills and those win conditions and like stop preventing your opponent from winning, those conditions from 2016 still translate to 2019 and 2022, like regardless of if Zacian wasn't there in 2016 or not. Like, you still spent that time to learn how to handle that win condition.
Yeah, I don't think it translates personally, but I don't think that that's necessarily right. It's just what I believe, right? I mean, Xerneas is another great example where with Xerneas, a big skill was how do you not let the Xerneas come in at the wrong time? Because if like oftentimes with Xerneas, they would lead like Salamence Smeargle, and they'd go like Tailwind Dark Void, and let's say they double miss Dark Void, and you have Mega Kangaskhan, you KO both Pokemon. That was often a game losing play because now Primal Groudon and Xerneas come in. They're like you're taking a bunch of damage with Prisma's Blade's Geomancy, and then the game is over, right? Like, 'cause now you've got Xerneas. Like, it was a lot about how do I not only deal with the Xerneas, but how do I not let it come in at the right time, And there's not really an equivalent, right? Like, I mean, Urshifu is a little bit similar, but like Urshifu is its own unique skill set, right? And yeah, dealing with like Primal Groudon, Primal Kyogre, these really powerful Pokemon. I think Dynamax Kyogre is another big one, right? I mean, that was one of the Dynamax Kyogre and Dynamax Groudon were such, and Gigantamax Zard as well. Those three Pokemon were such pivotal parts of 2022 that like there's not really anything comparable. You know what I mean? In my opinion, because Dynamax was such a unique mechanic. So, I do think that some skills translate. Like for 2016, the thing that I think translates is, at least from my Worlds team to my Charlotte team, is the idea of having 2 fake out users and the implicit pressure you can use with fake out. So when do you actually go for the fake out, and when do you say I'm not actually going to do it? Like having a fake out user, they protect both, and switching into your other fake out user so it's like fresh is like a skill that I developed in 2016. So I think like really specific stuff like that can be relevant again, but the vast majority of stuff I think is just kind of generationally locked, in my opinion. But it's not. I don't know for sure. It's really hard to kind of assess.
I'm hearing all of the Xerneas talk and not the Dark Void and stuff, and this is like I never played through this. I never had to deal with the Dark Void.
It was bad.
I don't know if I missed out. That's all I'm saying. And it seems like part of the discussion earlier on was bringing some terrible flashbacks for y'all. So I want to know from since both of y'all have played Pokemon, what has been the worst team archetype and the most annoying kind of set to deal with?
Ooh,
that's a good one. I think Swagger Thundurus has got to be up there for me. For me, my most 3 hated are probably Swagger, Thunderwave, Thundurus. That thing was it was so broken. Smeargle might be even be number 1 for me, but yeah, like having infinite moves with Dark Void specifically was just so stupid. And then I think Xerneas is just terribly designed. Like having a Pokemon that can double speed, special attack, special defense, powers up all fairy moves, and is the best type in the game is not. One of the things that I am the most thankful for is that Dynamax was so bad for Xerneas, and I don't think it's currently in the game because I think Terrestrialization would make Xerneas a nightmare, because the only answer that we had for Xerneas was that certain Steel-type moves did a lot of damage. Like, you could use Bronzong's Gyro Ball and just, do a ton of damage to it, and if it can change to Steel or Fire, or really any other type, it becomes probably pretty close to unmanageable, in my opinion.
Terra Ghost Xerneas to avoid the fake out.
Oh my god, yeah, I need to fake out. Yeah, no thank you.
Hey, we'll have to deal with it eventually. Legendaries always come back, right?
Yeah, but hopefully not in a Terra format.
I think that's an interesting question, because it's what would personally for me, or what is the worst strat? Because I didn't play Gen 5, so I didn't really have to deal with the Swagger stuff too much, but I've heard the horror stories from all my older friends. I think most people would say Big Six from 2016, because it almost objectively killed VGC, as we were quite growing in 2014, 2015. There was a lot of growth for VGC, 300, 400 player regionals, and we were going down to 36 player regionals because of how poor 2016 was. But for me, I think my answer is Chalk from 2015. Chalk made me want to quit. Chalk made me become a caster.
You gotta real quick, because remember, we do have people that have just joined in this year, past year in VGC. You gotta real quick say what Big Six, what Chalk is.
Okay, so Big Six was the good stuff's archetype of 2016 GS Cup format, which was Xerneas, Primal Groudon, Mega Salamence, Smeargle, Talonflame, and
Mega Kangaskhan.
And Mega Kangaskhan, right. So you had, 2 legendaries, 2 megas, 2 Tailwind setters, and Smeargle just for nonsense. And it was really oppressive, because it was every turn something they had 5 different viable things they could do every turn.
It was the most winning team in any VGC format. It won almost every event, and then there were variants. There was Big B, which was Big Bronzong. There was Big C, which was Big Cresselia. There was Big A, which is Big Amoonguss. So that wasn't as popular. Because the Talonflame eventually ended up being dropped for other Pokemon, but also some players Aaron Trailer was the best big something player at Worlds, and he had both Cresselia and Bronzong. He dropped I think both Talonflame and I want to say Kangaskhan, if I recall correctly. So yeah, it was incredibly flexible. the offensive synergy between Primal Groudon and Xerneas was unbeatable because Xerneas's fairy moves are only resisted by poison, fire, and steel, all of whom Primal Groudon like decimated, and then Xerneas had a really good matchup to Kyogre. It was awful.
Yeah.
Sorry, Joe, I didn't mean to cut you
No,
off.
you're good. It was
really
literally
bad.
perfect. It was perfect synergy. And then of course 80% of the time you were put to sleep by Dark Void, and even if Dark Void missed, he got an evasion boost on the Smeargle anyway. So
yeah,
that's what most people would say. But for me, Chalk, which if for those don't know, that was the 2015 format. It's an acronym for Cresselia, Heatran, Amoonguss, Landorus, Therian, and then Kangaskhan, and then just you could put a Psyduck at 6th slot for whatever you wanted. That Chalk made me become a caster because literally my biggest frustration, and to this day I still don't like Game Freak's competitive design, is that Chalk was the epitome of the way to beat this Pokemon is with itself. So Mega Kangaskhan beat itself with a fighting attack. Landorus beat itself with Hidden Power Ice. Heatran beat Heatran with Earth Power. There's just so many examples like that from back in the day that are just infuriating. We still see it today. The best way to beat Fluttermane is with the Fluttermane with the Shadow Ball. The best way to beat Golden Go is with a Ghost Attack into the Golden Go. So I think frustratingly the best way to beat Zacian was with your own Zacian. So frustrating to me, Game Freak still kind of has this ideology, but yeah, I always told people, like, if we could just have Keldeo just be legal in 2015, like as a water fighting type that was not hindered by Intimidate, it would have saved the format. It was like 108 speed, so it's faster. It's faster than Mega Kangaskhan. It's faster than Lando. Lando has to use the Scarf. He didn't have Terra Blast or Max Airstream, so it didn't have a good flying attack for the Keldeo. That would have saved the format, but unfortunately, Game Freak didn't listen.
Yeah, we were like, hey, we want a good water fighting type. And they're like, cool, here's Urshifu. And we went, oh, we just wanted Keldeo.
No, not this good. We just wanted a good one, not a broken one. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, Chalk made Joe Brown quit competing. I mean, but let's talk about like a good format. Like going back through the years, especially Wolf, since you have been competing for such a while now. What year do you think has been like your favorite one to be competing in, and then how that stacks up in comparison to competing in Scarlet and Violet?
2012 was by far the best, in my opinion. 2012 was an incredible format. It was like, so many Pokemon were viable, but like things were still good, and like it was also, the game was younger, so people were still figuring it out. Like until Sword and Shield, 2012 was the last format where I feel like you didn't need Intimidate. Like I feel like every format from like 2013 through like 2020, you like really need an Intimidate on your team. There are some examples, but like especially the longer the format went on, like 2013 you had Landorus, 2014 you had Mawile and Base Salamence and like some other guys. 2015 you obviously had Landorus. 2016 was like Mega Mence and Hitmontop and all the other guys. Mega Mawile was in there a couple years as well. 2017 you had Arcanine and Gyarados. 2018 you had Landorus and Incineroar. 2019 you had Incineroar, and then 2020 it was like, okay, you don't have any good Intimidate users, you don't need it as much because Dynamax is good. So 2012 in my opinion was just an incredible format. There were like so many good options, but like, yeah, I don't know. I'm also a little biased because I had a lot of success in 2012, but I don't know. Like I think 2012 was really, really fun. But I think Scarlet and Violet's been great as well. I mean, in recent years, I think Gen 9's competitive format has got to be like one of the best ever. And as a whole, I mean, so far, I would say that it's looking like it's in contention for one of the best ever. I also really liked early Sword and Shield, but with the pandemic shutting down events, we didn't really get to see it play out. But the first couple formats, like honestly, until they added the restricted legendaries in, I really liked Sword and Shield, and then things got a little bit tougher to enjoy, in my opinion. But I think that like the last two gens, I think the trend has been upward. I really didn't like Gen 7 VGC, but Gen 8 and Gen 9 I both thought have been very, very good competitively. And I think that Scarlet and Violet is on pace to being one of the best, if not the best, competitive generations ever, in part because I think the Terra mechanic, they've actually got one that like works competitively compared to like Dynamax, Megas, and Z moves. So yeah.
Yeah, well, you also had that cracked Reuniclus Lipard team in start of 2020.
I had some cool teams, yeah. And Trailer won with the non-solar powered Gmax Zard because we figured out that it was just completely broken, like way before everybody else.
Yeah. Also, while I was sitting here, Sierra, I thought of more examples. Kyogre beats Kyogre with Thunder. Primal Groudon beats Primal Groudon with Perseus Blades. Kartana beat Kartana with Sacred Sword.
I hate Kartana.
I could just literally keep rattling off how Game Freak handles balance. But is what it is. that's funny that you were like kind of down on Sun and Moon, because like my favorite format, and I didn't get to play in Gen 5. I've heard all the old heads say that 2012 is the best ever. I really love 2018, both from a National Dex format. I know March of 2018, the day the Earth stood still when Incineroar became legal. But I think that was probably my favorite format to both play and watch as a spectator, because we had Z moves, we had Mega Evolution, we had Incineroar, we had other like strong things that, as it felt like your whole team of 6 was very valuable and very, varied. So like you won a regional in 2018, like the day Incineroar came out. You didn't even have the Incineroar, right?
Yeah. I forgot Incineroar was legal for that.
Oh, really?
That was Charlotte as well, actually, funny enough.
You're just so, you should probably move to North Carolina at this point.
I lived there for a summer, actually. Fun fact.
Okay.
In Raleigh.
Oh, you had a Mega Charizard X.
Yeah,
right?
Tapu Bulu, Mega Charizard X. That was a special Landers
How do you
T.
come up with these crazy Pokemon? Like,
I don't know.
Sometimes, okay, I get it, Charizard X, or everyone's using Coco and Lele, and you use Bulu. Like, how do you make that decision that like this underrepresented Pokemon is actually what's going to be what wins me a regional?
I don't really know. Maybe delusion. Like sometimes oftentimes I'm trying to find trends, right? Where Charizard X initially, what I liked about it was that because I brought it to Worlds in 2015, actually. And what I thought was cool about it was like this super tanky, physically bulky fire type. So it was really good into like a lot of the slower physical attackers. Like so you could Will-O-Wisp to beat like Mega Kangaskhan and Landorus, and like you could also like annoy Mega Mence if it was physical, and like a bunch of the other Pokemon. I'm trying to think what else was good that year. Like Tyranitar, I obviously had. I don't remember if it was meta. Like it was good into Aegislash. And with Roost and Will-O-Wisp and Protect and Flare Blitz, you had this Pokemon that like you couldn't really ignore because of Flare Blitz, but also like Will-O-Wisp was just so broken, and it was like really tanky, and you had like Intimidate and Grassy Terrain support. I always liked Tapu Bulu. I don't know why. It wasn't very good. I think I just liked I was drawn to defensive Pokemon for a while, and Tapu Bulu, because the other Tapus were like mostly offensive. Tapu Bulu had a really nice defensive spread against a lot of them. So yeah, but yeah, no, I don't know. Sometimes I just like I'm looking for like opportunities. I'm like, okay, there's like these are the Pokemon that are really popular right now. What are the trends between them? Like what are kind of like the opportunities for Pokemon that could do well? That's how I found Gigantamax Colossal. At the time I was like, oh, an offensive rock type would do really well. And then I was like, okay, let me look at the rock types. And then there was Colossal. So yeah, I think I just am like always trying to kind of analyze what I expect to play against. I think I'm like decent at that. And then I'm good at like kind of finding up, like, I'm like, okay, well, given that these are the Pokemon that are relevant, like what are the, where are like the opportunities for an underrated Pokemon to shine?
I want to go back to the delusional part of things, actually. I want to know what is like one of the craziest Pokemon that you've just tried to make work, that you've been stuck on trying to make work, that's just, it's not happening. You can say about a past run too if you're not wanting to leak about future stuff.
Oh, I'm not working on anything right now. I'm bing chilling.
Okay.
I almost brought Swoobat to Worlds. I don't know what would have been better. Yeah, to Worlds 2014. I also thought about that year. I was like, oh, Girder's really good. Like Swoobat and Girder, like those were two that I thought could really pop off. And maybe Girder was 2015 now that I think about it. But yeah, no. So I like that's like a Pokemon where I was like, okay, like I'm not going to do it this time, but the next time it's relevant, I'm totally going to use Swoobat, and it's never been relevant. Like we've never had a format where it could work again. Like every time I'm like, and it's kind of like with, I mean, obviously it's worked, but Perish Trap is another one where every year I'm like, Perish Trap, it's time, and every year it's like it's not time, but sometimes it is time, and I'm good at finding it when it is. But yeah, I miss Mega Gengar.
I just imagine Wolf in the group chat, because like Justin Burns told us he always tries to build teams around Frostmoth, and his friends tell him
oh
no.
Yeah, Frostmoth is cool.
So like I imagine like Wolf's talking with Aaron Trailer or somebody else, and like, oh, who'd be really good in the 6th slot, and you just post Swoobat in there, and they're just like they just leave the call. They're just
love Swoobat.
Yeah.
If that thing ever has a chance, I will use it, but it has not been good in a really long time.
But I do think it's a really, I'm happy you brought that point up about like the unconventional Pokemon, or like trying to make a, like, because obviously no one's using Girder, no one's using Swoobat. You're trying to make a play, right? And I think it's something we talked about before, Sierra, about how at Worlds, or like in order to win a big event, you have to make a call, right? Like very seldom when you do the 6 most popular Pokemon with the 4 most popular moves on all 6 of them actually win the largest events. Like Alex Gomez used Dondozo without Tatsugiri, right? And Wolf obviously went Ryogre in a world dominated by Zerndon, Ryota, Z Nature Power, and Brick Break Marowak, right? Naoto's Dragon Claw Groudon. Like the list goes on and on. Literally, you always have to make a call. And in your Worlds video, you talk about how Marcus, you guys are building that Basque Legion team, and as you're just getting into the crunch time, Marcus was like, this team can't win Worlds. And like, how do you come up with that perspective of like, because I think it's so fascinating when I was watching that video that not only are you trying to build the best team, but you're trying to build a team that can win Worlds, and you have to decipher what can and what cannot do that. Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that like the teams that can win Worlds are significantly smaller than the teams that can top cut Worlds. And I think that like it's hard to say exactly what goes into it. I think that like it's a lot of it is kind of, I don't know, it's like kind of intuitive, you know what I mean? Where you're playing with a team and you're like, how does this feel, right? Like how easy is it for me to win matches? Like how is the matchup spread, right? Like is there like, if it's like, oh, I run into, Iron Defense Como, oh, do I just lose, right? Like and I think a team that wins Worlds I think it has to have a couple things. I think it has to be very consistent. Like I don't think that a move like Sleep Powder will ever win Worlds personally. I mean, maybe they'll clip this when it does, but I think that there are some like I think that like basically like you need to be like, if you're gambling, I don't think you're gonna win personally. I think that you need to have I don't think you can have really very many, or really you can't really have any auto loss matchups. It's fine to have some difficult matchups, and you especially have to have at least close to even matchups into the more popular stuff. Like there can't be a matchup where it's like, oh, like versus I don't know, like versus Wolf Charlotte team, if they figure out that they just have to do this and this, then there's nothing I can do. I think that's like not really something that will work. So yeah, I think it's tough because obviously like, so the last couple years, this is the longest I've ever gone without top cutting Worlds. My last Worlds top cut was 4 Worlds ago because I missed 18, 19, 22, 23. 2017 was the last time I top cut. And it's like my last 2 years especially have been, I would say, pretty bad by my like normal standards. And it's funny because like I think that if I had just had the goal of top cutting, I could have done that like with like a much easier time. But because the goal was to win, it's like much higher highs and much lower lows, But I do feel strongly that like, yeah, I don't think most people playing at Worlds know what it takes to actually win Worlds. And I think that like that's reflected a lot in the teams that people bring. I think a lot of people bring strong teams that can top cut, that could even like, to me, if I go to trailer and I go, hey, like I think this team is good, but I think this team, like if I say this team can win, that's very different than this team can get second, then this team can get fourth, then this team can get top 8, like top cut. I don't have top 8, top 16 distinctions, but like yeah, like there's to me, I can look at a team and tell you this team could win Worlds, or this team could not win Worlds. We knew about Shohei's team going into Worlds this past year. Like that was like one of the top teams on our radar, because when we heard about that, when we saw it, we were like, this is a team that could win Worlds. Like this is a team we need to be prepared for, because if we make it far, we're going to be playing against this. And that wasn't true. That was like, there were a very few handful of teams that we like explicitly made sure we had tools and like a matchup against going in, because because like there's not that many teams that like you can look at and say, okay, this could definitely do it. And we just happened to hear about the one that actually did do it, which is kind of cool.
I want to then know about your kind of mentality going into Worlds this year, because already seen a really big change from last year in comparison to this year, which is you started this year off with a break, right? So last year was a big difference because each event you're kind of ramping up and testing out a bunch of different things, build up all these different skills for Worlds, and ultimately Worlds, it just wasn't necessarily it. Plus the whole format change going into it. I know that was definitely frustrating for a lot of people out there. But then looking ahead at this Worlds, where we're most definitely going to be having a format change going into it, whether that is adding stuff like the Tapus, whether that's GS Cup already, we don't quite know. For the rest of the year, you're going to kind of do a similar, try and crack things open? Is it, hey, I'm just going to get fundamentals and just try and win everything I can, since we don't know? Like, what's kind of next for how you want to approach getting ready for Worlds?
Yeah, so I'm still figuring out some of the details, but I'm going to take a very different approach this year than I took last year. Last year, like you said, you really nailed it like perfectly. Like I spent the entire year using kind of a building approach where I said, okay, like I know what to expect at a Worlds format and a regional dex. Let me spend the year really working hard to like master the format. And then when the format changed at the last second, I was kind of left high and dry. I've done a lot of reflecting. I think I learned a lot from my performance last year. This year, my goal is to first and foremost use good Pokemon, because we don't know what the format's going to be. I can't say confidently that investing in learning how to use these unorthodox strategies will be worth anything at the end of the day. And frankly, like if the format ends up being something where I think it's going to be an unorthodox Pokemon that wins, I'm going to rely on my history as probably the person who's used the most unorthodox stuff, or like up there with like Jamie Boyd. And
no one can beat Boyd on that one.
Jamie might have me beat, but I'm one of the top ones for sure.
Yeah.
I think a top 3 probably at the very least, and I'll lean on that. So my goal is really to focus on identifying and using and bringing out the strongest Pokemon's full potential. I'm also going to focus a lot on kind of the out of game stuff. Like last year, I went to so many events, and comboing that with a new game release was just exhausting. Like, I was out of juice prior to NAIC, and I didn't get juice back before Worlds. It was a completely, like, I was running on fumes for months, to be completely honest, and I'm going to take real care to avoid that this year. And I'm also shifting my mentality, because I think that I think that winning Worlds in 2016 has made it harder in some ways for me to win again, because I've been trying to replicate what I did in 2016, where in 2016, to be like, in my opinion, I was something of an inevitability that year, where I think if you play that Worlds over and over and over again, I'm going to win more than any other player, because my team had such a good matchup. Like, that team had a near auto win into the Big Six and all Big Six variants, and I was so practiced and I was so dialed in and I was so prepared, that I felt like it was also the best I've ever felt about my play in my life. And so I've been trying to replicate that perfect day over the following, several years. And this year, I don't feel like I need a perfect day to win Worlds. Like, this year, I feel like I can show up and have it be just another day at the office for me. And if I'm doing well, and if I'm focused and dialed in, and my team is good, and I'm practiced and I'm prepared, that I don't think it's going to take a miracle. I think I've been aiming for a miracle, and I passed the point a long time ago where I needed a miracle to win Worlds. And so, this year I'm focused on just like not having it be this stellar performance where I look back and I go on a podcast and I say it was the best I've ever played. Like, I want to be able to go play and leave and say that was good, that was above average, that might have even been great, but that, like, I can still do better. Like, I still made mistakes and I still won.
Love to know too then, sorry, Joe Brown, I know I'm like right off
You're
questions
good.
But this was a recent conversation I've had with Joe Agarton. I'd love your thoughts on it as well. But for someone who's competed in the game for so long, especially for yourself, considering you are a world champion, about kind of managing your expectations going on forward as well. Because there's been people who have won regionals in the past where the attendance was a fraction of what they are now, and they're still great wins, but then people get down on themselves when they're not necessarily seeing that same success going on nowadays, where the game has grown so much. So I'm curious if you've ever kind of fallen in that like mentality trap, or how you kind of temper expectations for what's realistic while still also having confidence in yourself as a player that you can be one of the best in this game.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think it's something that a lot of players struggle with, right? I mean, I think what you have to keep in mind is that Pokemon is a really volatile game, right? And I don't think this is true of Joe personally, but there are other players who I think, like, they tend to view their skill level, like their average skill level, as their peak, where like somebody has like, the best day of their life and they have a really good finish, and they're like, okay, now I expect this every time, right? And then, Pokemon is volatile. And not only is the game itself volatile with matchups, right? With not only team matchups, but player matchups, right? Like, Aaron Traylor showed me his schedule for his Knoxville run, and I was like, this could be day 2 Worlds. Like, honestly, like, it is insane, the matchups that he had, like the people he had to play against at day 1 Knoxville. It was absurd, right? There's team matchup, there's luck in the game, right? Sometimes you're gonna get crit and flinch and all this other stuff. And my advice, number 1, is that the most valuable thing that I have learned from Pokemon, or one of the most valuable things I should say, is that the lesson that you can play really well, you can do everything right, and you can still lose. And you can also sometimes make mistakes and maybe even play really poorly and still win. And so it's really important to think about, like, when you're assessing how you did, it's important to not only look at yourself, like not only look at the results, but instead to look at like how you actually did, right? Like, did you make mistakes? Did you do all you could, right? And for me personally, whenever I got a finish that I wasn't happy with, I wasn't like, oh, like this discounts, the tournaments I won in the past. I was like, okay, well, what can I do better next time, right? Because the result ultimately, like, it's nice to, I see these kids, let me tell you, okay? Let me tell you, these new kids, I'm talking to you, you know who I'm talking to, they come in the scene, it's their first year, and they're like, yeah, I'm gonna win Worlds, I'm the best player ever. Like, I watched a player at Worlds this past year get on the stage, win a set on stream, and go like, I don't know who, like, somebody asked him like, hey, like, how are you feeling? And they were like, I'm gonna win the World Championships. And like, how do I say? It's great to have confidence in yourself. It's really, really awesome, right? But you don't, like, that's not something you can really ever confidently say, in my opinion, because I mean, first of all, if it's your first year or like your second year or whatever, you don't know what that takes, right? If it's your first time making it that far at Worlds, but also like the result is never in your hands, truly, right? Like we all want to believe like, oh, I'm the best. Like at my peak, like of course I'm gonna win, but like there are things that are out of your control. Like I just said, like I think if you play Worlds over and over again, like I win more than any other player, but I didn't say I win every time, and there's a reason for that, right? Because like there are things that are out of your control that can happen, and the result is never in your control, truly. Like I mean, I just won Charlotte. I only lost one set. I think I could have missed day 2 there. Like if things had gone differently, like I don't think it was going to happen often, but I think there's a world where I go and like, I had a couple game 3 sets. Maybe I play a little worse. Maybe I get a little more unlucky, and like things could have gone differently. Or you lose an early set, and then your matchups are all skewed because you're playing against other people who have lost. So, this is a really long way to answer your question, but the truth is that I think that if you really want to have longevity in the game, you cannot obsess over results, period. Because results will come and go. People will have hot streaks. People will have lower, like poorer performances compared to what they're expecting. And the results are out of your control. And so obsessing over them is never going to do you any favors, because like it's like obsessing over whether it rains tomorrow ultimately, right? It's not in your control. You can make good guesses. You can do everything right, but you might still sometimes it's going to rain, it's going to snow or whatever. And so yeah, I don't know. I think that like you really need to assess why you're playing. If you're playing this game just to win, maybe you should play a game with less like where like this better player comes out on top more often, right? Like there are games where the better player is going to win most of the time, right? If your goal is like I want to win, right? My goal has been I want to better myself as a person and as a player, and Pokemon is a really good game for that because you can always get better, right? I mean, I'm much better now, I think, on average than I was when I won the World Championships, when I was the best in the world, despite not always getting the results. If you look at my last year's world performance, lots of people would probably disagree with that statement, but that's how I feel. So yeah, I think you need to think about why you're playing and to make sure you're playing for the right reasons, personally. Very long-winded answer, sorry.
That's what I wanted to ask you about how you're saying you're a much better player now. Like 2024 Wolf would wipe the floor with 2016 Wolf, right? Oh. I don't know. But I remember last year I was hosting one of the regionals, and you went around and we talked about how you said like I'm a much better player now than I was back then. And I thought it's such an interesting perspective, because back then you were objectively the number one player on the planet in VGC. So like, how do you improve from number one? If I'm making sense, you know what I mean? Yeah.
So I think what's really important is to think about the idea of like someone's skill level is not a number. I'm not like a 10 on the skill tree, right? How good I am varies based on, the day, right? Like and like not only the day, based on my preparation, based on the team I have, right? I could have been the best player in the world in 2016. You give me a team with 6 Ferrothorn and I go up against Primal Groudon, probably not winning that one. You know what I mean? Like there are so many outside factors, and it's so hard to judge skill in VGC because like over half of the skill, in my opinion, is the team part. Like what team do you build? How do you prepare with that team? And what do you like? It's even if you don't build it, what team do you choose to bring, right? And so if you give 2024 Wolf a team as good as Wolf's 2016 team with the preparation the 2016 Wolf had at Worlds, right? Like, yeah, like maybe like there's nothing to that can stop him, right? But I mean, also people forget at the time my 2016 Nationals run going into Worlds was my worst ever. I went 5 wins and 4 losses. And so people, this is true of all VGC players, they only remember the peaks, right? But that is also true, right? Like 5 wins, 4 losses with truly an abysmal team. Joe, you can probably appreciate this. It was Red Card Heatran, it was Dialga with Lava Plumes, Special Primal Groudon, with Scrafty. I can't even believe I remember this stuff. It was horrible. Just I think it was double Intimidate with Landorus T as well. It was an abysmal team. No speed, like yeah,
and you still won awful. 5 games. That's how good you are.
Okay, well, like, yeah, okay, well, I mean, it wasn't. Yeah, I mean, it was not a tournament winning team. We'll say that it's not a team that I would look at that and say this could make day 2 World, But yeah, I think that like my peak in 2016 might still be my peak in terms of the best. Like everything came together for me. My team was perfect. My preparation was immaculate, and my play was like the best that I think the single best day I've ever had. But that was not all of 2016 Wolf, right? Like. Even when I was winning regionals with the stupid Dialga team, right? Like even then, like I think that like my play on the whole, on average, and maybe my peak as well, is just much higher now. But like that Wolf was playing at 100% of his potential, and I've never reached 100% of my potential since then. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's just an interesting conversation because like I would agree with you on your 2016 team, I think most people when they look at VG history, like that is probably the strongest, most well-constructed team of 6 that has won the World Championship. Maybe you could argue Sejun's team. You could argue 2012 Ray. You could put Edu in there since he technically didn't lose any games, so maybe his team is the best team that there was. But most people would say that, like, for Sierra, for anyone who wasn't following VG at that time, for you to win in a sea of Zerndon teams, for you to win with Ray Ogre, it was, I don't know if you can put it into better words than me, is you were the player that decided to just completely flip the script on what was that started in January that year. So what was 8 months of Zerndon decimation, and it doesn't win the World Championship, is like one of the biggest stories that we've ever had.
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it. Like it was a year where the best team was figured out in the first week of the format. Like the first events, the first events. If you look at the standings, it's all Xerneas, Groudon, and then like almost all the exact same Pokemon talent. The big 6 we were talking about earlier, and it's so rare for a team to stay that way for the entire year because a team pops up and then people find counters to it, right? And there were moments, I remember Alex won a regional with dual primals, and like I think Korean Nationals was run by a really weird like Mega Rayquaza set, if I remember correctly. But like US Nationals was like a big 6 mirror, like a Zerndon mirror in the finals. Like from the first tournament until like basically the last tournament, it won every single event. And the few ones where it didn't, the Zerndon, it was like they had the right moment, right? Alex had this Mega Motwile team, but like, and the Zerndon players figured out, they started teching in Bronzong or Cresselia or like Amoonguss or whatever. And then eventually, the Zerndon players would again end up on top. Like you couldn't stop it. You could just like divert it for a tournament, right? And so to have a team that like, and there were teams that could beat it, but the thing is that those teams lost to the other archetypes. Like you couldn't beat both Zerndon and Kyogre teams, right? Like it wasn't possible really, or it wasn't believed to be possible. So yeah, I mean, for the team of the format that had been dominating everything, that people thought would win the whole thing, to eventually fall to a totally new composition, it was really, really just like impactful and really, really shocking from those of us who experienced the entire year. That's what I think, at least. I'm a little biased.
All right. Well, I think talking about flipping scripts, I'm going to flip the script a little bit here and talk a little bit more about the content creation journey that you've been on. Because I know like myself, that's obviously really, really cool to see. As well, too, I want to talk about the fact that you actually have an event coming up this Saturday, time recording, just a couple of days. You have your Wolf Fight Club, I think it's called, happening. So, like, what's that about? Like...
Yeah, so we are opening up another real life Pokemon gym. It's basically, we did one last, I think it was December, or not this past December, but the year before, if Scarlet and Violet's released, it went really well. It's the most viewed video on my channel actually is the kind of event recap, and so we wanted to do another one. It's gonna be fighting type themed. We're renting out a real life boxing gym, but the thing is that the venue itself is small, so we can't fit that many people in. So I think some people who've signed up for the event will get tickets to the boxing gym to kind of come be a part of the finale, and to maybe try some of the gym challenges themselves. But Beast Coast is helping do an after party, just like as a way to kind of celebrate the event happening in the first place. So I'm excited for it. It's going to be a little different than the last one. So I'm definitely like a fair bit nervous because it's just, most of my content is these kind of scripted video essays. So doing something in real life with like an actual, like real cost associated, it's just like, it's a little riskier, and, I really want it to do well, but I kind of feel like it's one of those things where you just have to take big swings, and sometimes you're going to hit and sometimes you're going to miss. And kind of like what we were talking about earlier, right? The outcome is, I can do my best, but ultimately I can't know what the outcome is going in. So, yeah, but I'm excited, and it's cool to be able to do these. It's such a blessing to be able to do these kind of like real life bigger projects, in my opinion.
So do people have to, I was going to say, the team construction, you said it's a fighting, do you have to come with 6 fighting types on your team, or do Hitmonchan, rock, paper, scissors? Like, how does the event, operate?
We're doing Hitmonchan, rock, paper, scissors. That's one of the gym challenges. Yeah, so the gym leader will have a fighting type team, but the gym challengers can use whatever they want.
Okay, gotcha.
And wait, is it actually, so you said like, got like the gym boxing match, do you get to sit in the boxing ring?
In the ring, yeah. So the championship battle will be in the ring. Yeah.
Let's go.
So yeah, I'm really excited for it. I think visually it's going to be really interesting. I think the space is awesome. So I'm really nervous, but I think it'll be cool.
No, it's really cool to see kind of like, because as it is, VGC, especially in like the content creation space, is definitely within like a growing period. Yeah. Which it's really like, I'm so intrigued to see where it is in a couple of years. But you've definitely been then one of the trailblazers on this aspect of the VGC thing, now being one of the first people to actually host these big events that anyone can come out to. So how do you even think of like what events that you want to be going towards, like kind of managing like the back end of stuff for all of this? Because there is a lot to it.
Yeah, so I mean, I think just talking about VGC content creation in general, it's like, I feel like it's funny because things were so different years ago. Joe, you probably remember, and Sierra, when did you start getting involved with VGC stuff? Like Sun and Moon?
Sword and Shield Series 5 with
really?
the WBE. Yeah, WBE was my first time.
I remember you doing WBE stuff. I thought it was like one of the earlier ones. Okay, yeah. So that's really good context to have. So for anybody who doesn't know, VGC used to be so incredibly niche that we were like not even seen as like a legitimate format. Like when people would talk about competitive Pokemon, they would talk about Smogon OU. Like that was the format. And like I'd be like, oh, I play VGC, and they're like, oh, you play the fake format. Like you don't even have stealth rocks. Like,
why isn't anyone using Skarmory in VGC?
Exactly. Like, well, you don't even know what good Toxapex is. Like, it was crazy. Like, I mean, we had Aaron, thank God. Like, Aaron was like really blazing the trail. But like, you know, like VGC was so niche and so reverse mainstream that like people didn't even know what VGC was. Like, if they didn't know about competitive Pokemon, and if they did know, they thought it was single battles. And so, you know, one of my real goals with doing content creation was to like bring VGC to a more mainstream audience. And so it's I don't know, it's been so crazy to kind of see the growth and see like if you told anybody from Sun and Moon VGC's era that a VGC, like a video on a VGC tournament could get over 1 million views, they would laugh at you. They would say like, haha, we need to like, okay, grandpa, let's get you to bed. You know what I mean? Like it was unthinkable. It was unthinkable to get like 100,000 views on a video unless you were a super high roller. You know what I mean? So, yeah, so when I'm thinking about doing these events, I mean, my main goal with the channel and kind of the audience that I'm trying to kind of cultivate is I want to make VGC content that anybody who has any connection to Pokemon can watch and be interested in and would be interested in clicking on, right? So they'd be like, oh, this is a cool concept, let me check it out. And then once they're in, that they like the video themselves is like approachable, that they could stay without alienating people who do know more. So a lot of my events like kind of do this, like try to execute this concept as best they can. So the real life gym, right? Like that is something with a really broad casual appeal, but then we can also showcase VGC battles as a part of that, right? And when we do these like big influencer tournaments, right? There's a lot of people who like, you know, oh, my favorite streamer's playing a Pokemon tournament. I know what Pokemon is. Let me click on this. And then how do we like make this tournament in a way where like we're showing, hey, like, you know, your favorite content creator, your favorite streamer is here and they're learning the game and they're doing pretty good with it. You know what I mean? Like maybe, you know, maybe you could do it too. Maybe it looks kind of fun. Maybe you should check it out. So, yeah, I mean, these big events, they take a lot of time. They take a lot of like, planning. They're often very expensive. And so like, it's not something that we can do all the time. And also I'm a relatively low stress person, but these big events cause me a lot of like stress because the cost of missing and like getting one wrong is just a lot higher. You know what I mean? Like not only the physical cost or the opportunity cost, but I just like I partnered with Beast Coast in like in large part because they were very excited and willing to help out with these events. And they did answer your question about the back end. Beast Coast helps a ton. Actually, they do almost all of the logistical work, if not all of it, right? And that is massive for me because it's a lot of work, and these people are incredibly talented and really, really great at what they do and very communicative. So for me, I'm very, very happy with them. But that also means that if we do one of these and it doesn't do as well as we think, and we sell a sponsor and we're like, okay, this is what we expect, and then we go under, right? It's not just me that's affected, it's all these other people, you know? So yeah, so I just am trying to really pick good spots about it. Sorry, again, not brief in the slightest.
Hey, that's all good. We're here for it. We're all excited. We're sure, you know, everybody listening is loving the conversation too. Cause like, I remember when you first got full-time content creation, you went into it and you would do so many just completely random Pokemon, like 2 rank 1 videos, right? Like you do live stream, and like some of those matches were just so completely unhinged. Like they were hilarious. Like I'm sure you still have those VODs up from back in the day. So like anyone could watch. Like I have 2 questions for that era of Wolf content creator, the rank 1 era. What was your least favorite Pokemon that you had to get to rank 1? Like just the most insufferable grind of all time, and which of those bad Pokemon that you got to rank 1 would you like to win a regional with? Be like, oh, Wolf won blank regional with this crappy Pokemon.
Yeah, I mean the worst one was by far Glaceon. That thing was miserable. You would think it would be something like more Pico or like one of the other really bad ones, or like Red's team. Like that was wild. Like where I with the Reds team video, I was did the old midnight strat, which I think I was one of the first people I might have been the person to come up with that. I mean, it wasn't rocket science, but I was like, okay, I gotta get Reds team to rank 1. Like, better do it as as fast as possible. I won 6 games in a row and I hit rank 1, and like that was it. And it was frankly a miracle that worked. Yeah, I think if I had to pick a single Pokemon, I would probably say, probably Leafeon, because that was the first one that I did. That was gonna be
my answer.
Yeah,
your Leafeon run was just perfect.
It was good too. It was actually really good. Like with Dynamax, it was a solid mon. So yeah, I feel like Leafeon will always have a special place in my heart because that was the one that kicked them all off.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So talking about the least favorite Pokemon, I'll do a happier spin on stuff for all of your content that you're doing. What do you think has been your favorite video that you've output to date?
I have a lot of videos that I'm really proud of. From some of the older videos, like from the beginning of Sword and Shield, some underappreciated ones are there's a battle where I try to win with all the Apple Pokemon, or a video where I try to win with all the Apple Pokemon. I think it has like, I think it might have like 10,000 views. Like it's definitely like not something that like, the majority of people have seen, but it is so funny. But in terms of videos I'm actually like the most proud of, I think probably the Worlds video from this year. That video was brutal. I will be completely honest. Like that video was like really a struggle to work on because it's insanely long. It's a 2-hour long, fully scripted video. And I actually I spent like a couple weeks working on a rough draft, and then like I got editing feedback and I was looking through the notes. I was like, oh, they're right about this. Like this is a lot of really good feedback. And I was like rereading what I wrote, and I was like, this is not good enough. Like this does not tell the story I want to tell. So I didn't have to. I chose to scrap the entire thing and then start again. And like wow. It was so much writing, and I cared so much about the quality of it that like I also learned that I really was doing my best writing from like 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. So like every night for like 2.5 months, I was staying up till 2 a.m. just like writing, like trying to get the overall narrative. Like I don't know. Anyway, it was a ton of work. I actually feel like I improved immensely as a writer by doing it. But at the moment, I'd say it's the video I'm the most proud of. Also, it means a lot to me because, again, like I remember a time where like it was really difficult to get people interested in VGC content. So to be able to put out a 2-hour video about my personal journey to be like the best in the world, and with all of this really technical, really like nitty gritty stuff, and to have that video perform well is something that like I think it's not something I take for granted.
And then how do you feel too about the reception of the video as well? Because that was something I know that I feel like in the past, especially when I started getting involved, kind of the more competitive players didn't necessarily watch VGC content. And that's obviously then come around a lot because the VGC content that's being outputted, there's some really high quality stuff. And I feel like as soon as your video came out amongst everyone I knew, players, etc., they're all talking about your video. They're all watching it. Garte watched it like 5 times. And that's a 2-hour long video. So he's watched 10 hours of your world run. But to see then kind of the reception of the video, I mean, it's currently sitting at 1.7 million views. Like that was a month ago. Like, how does that feel?
Yeah, it feels great. It's actually interesting you say that because I didn't see a lot of the discussion from the competitive players. I kind of feel like, well, okay, I'll into the second half first because that's easier. Like, I mean, to have the video do really well, again, it's the same thing where I worked really hard on it, and I was like, if this video doesn't do very well, I'm going to be not crushed, but that's going to feel really bad because this is all I've worked on for months, and my editor, Wit, who is incredibly talented, like, just and so good at what he does, like, he worked so hard on it as well, and like, it was, I mean, I started working on the video in October, and it came out December 30th, so and I was, we were really working almost every single day on it, and so if that had done badly, I would have been really upset. So to see it do so well, to see it's almost past it's almost got more views than the last year's Worlds video, which is over a year, has been out for over a year. So to have it pass it in basically a month is just really amazing. It was really validating, and it really made me feel just made me feel really good about it because I put so much work and so much effort and so much care into this video. So to see it get like a nice reception, see people really appreciate it, like I don't know, like it's really nice. Yeah, it's interesting because I didn't really see the top VGC players talking about it. Like maybe I just missed it, or like maybe it was like in more private circles. But it's kind of funny because when I first started making VGC content, a lot of the VGC community was very adversarial about it. Like people were, I think I could have blown up a lot more, but I was getting like not harassed, but definitely like made fun of openly when I was making guides for VGC Pokemon back in 2017. Like I had this series that was really pogging off, and I stopped because like the VGC players were like making fun of me, and I feel like it's kind of been a trend like over the years where like I don't know, like I don't always. I mean, it's okay now because also when I said the community, it's definitely not everybody. Like I have a lot of really good relationships with people within the scene, but like the overall vibe, it hasn't always been like, just to be blunt about it, the VGC community as a whole has not always been very kind to me, and I think it's only kind of gotten more just a little more exacerbated as I've grown, because I don't think people even really see me as like a person anymore. I think I'm just seen as like a character almost. Like I think people forget that like when they say mean things about me, like I see them and like that I'm like a real person, like, or maybe they feel that it's justified because I have, you know, outwardly I have success. So yeah, I don't know, like I kind of just assume that, I guess what I would say is that I don't really assume that VGC players will watch my stuff anymore. And whenever somebody from the community is like, oh, I watched this video, I really liked it, it means like a lot to me personally, because like it's not something I take for granted, because for so long it was like not cool to watch a Wolf video, right? Or like it was only cool to watch if you were gonna make fun. So like, yo, you've referenced a couple videos, and every one of them has made me like, it made my heart kind of like swell a little bit. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, I mean, like, literally, I like my stuff.
I was going to talk about your psychic type video because I watched that today. Your latest one. That was also. I did not know Cresselia is the only Pokemon that's won Worlds 3 times.
I think
Masters,
my wording was a little confusing. It's no Pokemon has won more than 3 times.
Okay,
there are a couple Pokemon who have won at least 3, but none.
I still
none
didn't even know
it
won 3 times. Like,
yeah.
So that was interesting. But to go back to the players, I think there's like a. Because I will always defend you to the high heavens, because like, you are so important for our community. You're such a great guy. Like, I think there was an aspect of like a too cool for school opinion of VG players back in the day in the 3DS era, where it was like, if you're trying too hard, like if you're Aaron making Road to Ranked, and
people get Aaron a lot of crap.
Yeah, he's trying too hard. Like he doesn't have to post every day. Oh, he posted my team. Now my team's not as good. Like you know, all these things. And like with you, like. There's inherent value in 2017 and you winning worlds in 2016, and then the world champion is posting like world champion, you know, Incineroar guide or whatever. The world champion memes are always so good. And like people were just punks. Like even like they just want to hate on you like for success. Like even last week, like we talked about it, me and the Justins talked about it on the podcast last week. Like your tweet was completely innocuous. It was fun. You talked about one of your.
I was like getting blowback for that.
It makes no sense. One of your patrons wins a regional the week after you win it with the same team that you have on Patreon. That is inherently a fun, cool story, and people just like dog you because you're Wolf. Like mad. It just doesn't. I still don't understand what people were upset about.
I don't know.
Your tweet was perfectly fine.
I appreciate that. I was kind of like, am I crazy? I like, yeah. You know, it was actually funny. You reminded me back in the day, the phrase "grow the game" was a meme. It was a meme used to make fun of people like Aaron and I, and like they'd be like, "Oh yeah," like because the subtext was VGC is so bad, it's so like unapproachable, it's so complicated that it will never be anything close to an esport. It won't even be able to be thought of as like we're not even in a pre-esport phase, because it's so like it'll never be big. Like we're not even bigger than Smogon singles. And so when I'd be like, oh yeah guys, like I really want to do this, like I really want to grow the game, it was a meme. It was like it was literally something people used to say, like even players who are around nowadays who are like, you know, like
we used to do it on commentary all the time. We used to say, oh, storylines grow the game. Like it was a meme, but like
community was making fun of it. It was a joke. If you want
my conspiracy theory as to why people didn't want to grow the game, this might be my hottest take of all time. It's not like they didn't like you or they didn't like you getting views or the game growing. They didn't want the game to become bigger. They didn't want the game to become more successful, because then the more players that were there, the less likely they were to win or perform well at events. And I don't think I'm too off base with that opinion.
I don't think you're too off base either. My take is kind of like people didn't really they like, how do I say, like people, they weren't really thinking about it like critically. It was just like, oh, like there's somebody has this crazy pipe dream, and it is so unthinkable that like, yeah, we could all get behind, and of course it'd be good, but like, you know, like I mean I've never like been within the VGC community, I've never been like especially popular, and so I think it was an easy target, right? It was the guy who like, you know, like was dreaming big with this kind of crazy idea that VGC could be bigger, that it could be something that a mainstream audience could be interested in, right? And so it was just. And it wasn't just me either. I mean, it was casters, it was Aaron, like a lot of people had this dream, but it was all people who were in some way, one way or another, a position of power. And so I think it was easy for people to kind of take this pipe dream and take this like shot in the dark almost and point and say, haha, you're in power, but you're stupid, right? Like you have a like this is never gonna work.
The line
like,
goes crazy, by the way.
we should improve society somewhat. Like, curious, but you participate in society. I am very smart vibes. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm just gonna call my senator with that line. He's like, "Hello, senator, you are in power, but you are stupid."
Yes. So, I mean, I don't know. And also people were like a lot. People were younger too, right? Like, I really trust that people have kind of grown and matured since then, but. Yeah, the game was newer, like people didn't know what was possible, and it did seem stupid, right? Because VGC was so much less than it is now.
I'm curious then too, like obviously there is at that point where you're trying to grow the content career and all of this, and where you are now as this very, very successful content creator and YouTuber, then how different difficulties kind of arise up. Because we talked about it a couple weeks ago on the podcast that even as a caster, even with the podcast, that sometimes at events, like it can be difficult to compete and just kind of focus on things. And I've seen Aaron at events and him getting swarmed. Rose has bright pink hair. Do you know how many people see her bright pink hair and detail it over as we're trying to get to dinner? So it's always so nice because it's like, obviously it comes from a really good place. People are really happy to see the content, but I can't imagine while you're trying to focus on a tournament run that could be really the easiest sometimes.
Yeah, it actually is a big challenge, and it's one that I almost never talk about because I don't think that like I don't know how it will be perceived, and also like it's not something that I think a lot of people can like kind of relate to or really understand what kind of how that changes things, because there's like when you're at a tournament, and when I'm at a tournament, I should say, there are two conflicting goals, right? Where if people come up to talk to me, I really want to be focused on them, right? Like a lot of times people are really nervous, or they're like, they're like, oh, like they're like they don't really know what to say, and so it's really about kind of like asking them questions and understanding where they're coming from and finding out like like learning a little about them and like just having a conversation. It's very focused on another person, and when you're competing in a tournament as a competitor, you really want to be very selfish. How am I feeling right now? What do I need right now? Do I need water? Do I need to use the bathroom? Do I need space? Do I want to be with my friends? Right? And these are really conflicting goals, and it's really hard to balance them, to be honest. Like, because especially after a loss, like if you lose and like it's like some Bologna or whatever, or even like you just get beat, like it's like that's like not a time when I want to take pictures, not a time I really want to talk to people. And so I think I have a good system where I typically just find a spot that's a little less populated and go, like my friends will like we'll scope it out before the tournament. We'll be like, okay, this is where we'll meet up, and we'll just spend some time there. And I'll talk to people when we'll get in there, or like when I have more time, I'm happy to like after Swiss finishes, I'm always happy to like kind of hang around the center. If I'm feeling like, oh, I could actually talk to people now, and have it not kind of take away from my tournament performance, then I'm happy to do that. But yeah, no, it's really difficult to balance, just being honest, like because it's like mode switching, right? Like I'm in talking to people mode, I'm thinking about every turn of my game, every single opportunity, how I lost, how could I prevent this, or I won, but like how, like I made mistakes, right? Like how do I learn from those mistakes? Like what would I do next time? Like did I learn something? It's really, really difficult. And frankly, each of those individual activities takes a lot of energy, right? At least I'm an introvert. Like I love talking to people, but like ultimately it is draining for me. And so even more so when I feel like oftentimes I should be the one kind of driving the conversation, because people like they don't oftentimes people plan to come up, but they don't always think about what they want to say. So then it's up to me to kind of like ask where are you from, like is this your first event, like stuff like that. So but the thing is that everyone is always super nice, super kind, super understanding. Like it's so rare I have any kind of bad interaction. I wish that when I went to a tournament I could like segment them, where I could say, okay guys, like I'm gonna come in Thursday, we're gonna like, or like Friday before the tournament starts, I'm gonna have this window to kind of talk to people, and then at the tournament itself I'm like in full tournament mode, I'm not talking to anybody. But it's not realistic, you know what I mean? So but that would be ideal for me if I could kind of just like do all like both parts at once, or like or not at once, but like do both parts and with the separation,
at different times.
You could try to have like a I'm open to talking hat, and then you can have like a I'm busy recapping my round hat, or something like, or like a type of thing on your head, so people know like, oh, Wolf needs to be left alone right now, or it's like, oh wait, it's the green hat, that means go, that means we could say hi to him.
That's really funny. Yeah, I've definitely thought about stuff like that, but Yeah, I've never actually tried anything.
I'm just imagining like you're wearing the red hat and like someone sees you like going to take the hat off and they're just like waiting, like, oh my gosh, to see the hat switch, and then everyone runs over.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I can't imagine what you have to do with or what other, prominent players do. Cause like when I played in Charlotte, I sat down in the first round and there was someone like, I'm obviously, nowhere near on your guys' level, but like they heard my voice. People know me from my voice more than my face actually, which is interesting.
That's funny.
So like I was talking like, oh wait, you sound familiar, you caster. And like someone like 3 tables down was like, oh, Joe, what are you doing here? And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, oh, my friend said he was playing you and you were at the you had a VIP table and he had to go over there. And I was like, am I made of money? Like, what do you mean I'm at the VIP table? Like, so like, if people are like thinking of that, like just for me, like I can't imagine you or Aaron or Ugarte or Riley, or like all these, like what you guys have to deal with. Because like your opponent wants to beat you because they want to have a good record. Right, round 5, someone's playing you, you're both 4-0. They want to win so they go 5-0, but they also want to beat you so that they can say, "I beat Wolf." Right?
Yeah, I mean, you're always like, at least for me, I'm always in the disadvantaged position of like I'm the opponent always has, not always, but it often feels like I have everything to lose and they have like nothing to lose and everything to gain. Right? Because if you play, especially if you're a newer player, not an established player, like people go into the matches with me expecting to lose, but like that like also makes you more reckless, right? There's also like people oftentimes play erratically versus me because they're like, oh, I'm playing Wolf, I have to play crazy, right? And so it's definitely challenging, but I mean that's all in-game stuff, so I'm not, I have no right to complain about that.
Have it on record that the only one time I played Wolf, I beat him. So
yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
That's true. And I never know. You never know in a universe, but that did get a lot of attention off YouTube because then they're like, what's this scrub doing beating Wolf? Yeah. And it was very shortly after that Pokemon picked me up for commentary.
Oh, and maybe they're fans of the WBE.
I know. Well, like the content took off because people saw me beat you, and they're like, "Oh, she must be good." They were so wrong, but we don't have to talk about that. My Drake result came in clutch, but I mean, I don't know if that hadn't happened, maybe I wouldn't be here right now. So
I didn't realize the timing was like that. That's really funny.
That was the first time I ever heard of Sierra because it was a deal. Like it was a big deal that this TCG player in the WBE league, beat Wolf. Like so. The domino effect. You're an influencer even when you don't even intend to be Wolf.
I'm influencing. I'm
doing the influence. All right. I want to ask too, because like you see some of the comments, obviously. I don't know how much you see Twitch chat. Twitch chat goes crazy about you. Where's Wolf? Oh, Wolf's in jail. What's all this? I want to know what's like the most like out of pocket or like funniest thing that you've seen like said about you.
You don't know. I feel like there's always, the thing is that I feel like when there's rumors about me, they're not often very fun. You know what I mean? But there are definitely times where Twitch chat is being funny. You know what I mean? But I can't really think of any offhand. I think I tend to kind of avoid reading comments like in the space just because I think like it's just human nature that if 90% are positive but 10% are negative, the 10% stick out more. You know what I mean? And like kind of what I was talking about earlier, where I feel like people just say whatever they. Like whatever comes to mind because they don't often think that like I'm an actual person, and so I tend not to kind of interact with it too much just because I feel like it often does more harm than good.
That's fair. I think the funniest thing I've seen in recent time, Charlotte, obviously you're playing Incineroar. We do our Twitch chat polls where they get to pick the match. And we didn't put the name on it for that match because we're not looking to try and like have 100% for your game and 0% for the other games, right? Because Twitch chat wants to see you. And every other matchup, like the Pokemon they had on the team was pretty interesting, and for yours we just put down Incineroar.
So funny,
which I thought was really funny considering Wolf Glick and Incineroar. Yeah, and people weren't too wise for it. Your game didn't get too many votes for it, but there was a couple of people like, if Wolf's the Incineroar, and sure enough, it's kind of how it went down, which I thought was kind of cute.
I like the memes, like the when someone photoshopped my awful, terrible hair on Screamtail at Orlando. Oh my God. That's one of my favorite pictures. It is so funny.
It's a good one. That's just so good.
I do love the Incineroar memes, especially like just in general when you're showing them in the videos and when you tweet about it and stuff. But then also like the attachment people had to like Wolf hates Incineroar, and then the like realization they had to just like it was like you became the enemy for a weekend because you won with Incineroar. So like was that when you were building the team, we were like, oh, people aren't gonna like that I've got Incineroar.
I was just trying to win. You know what I mean? I was like, I was like, I couldn't believe the Incineroar slander I was seeing. I talked about this in the video that on Charlotte that we're working on, but like, I couldn't believe how many people were like discounting Incineroar. I was like, listen, if they're gonna sleep on the king, I'll take advantage of that, sure.
No, for sure. And my other thought, like, whenever you play, because obviously we're always looking at the top players. We're refreshing Arcanine every round and seeing, Control F Wolf, Control F Aaron, and you know, Ugarte, Trailer, all the things. Like, I always wonder, because I feel bad for you personally sometimes, or for Joe, or for some of our top players, that like, if you have an early loss, essentially the only way that you get into day 2 or into Top Cut is by having to win a win-in on stream. If you think about it, like, if you lose round 3, well, now we can't pull you to round 7, round 8, or round 9 because we pull undefeateds every round up until then.
Right.
Or even go, like, let's say you lose round 10 on day 2. Now we can't pull you to round 14 if it's a potential win. And like, does that ever cross your head that like, oh man, the only way I'm going to make it through this day is I'm going to have the most stressful match of my day and have the whole world watch it?
I never thought about it. I didn't even
really
realize that you, like, I knew that you tended to pull exos, but I didn't realize it was an absolute thing. So I never thought about it before, to be honest. But I don't mind going on stream. Like, I mean, the thing is that like going on stream, at least for me, has the advantage of like if we do make a video on the event, that at least we can recreate less footage. Which is a huge time save. So I'm typically like grateful to go on stream. And I also like, I mean, there is more pressure and I do feel it sometimes, but also I typically feel like my opponent will be more nervous on stream than I will. So even if I do feel like nerves, I've often am able to like kind of just like dial in and focus on the match, you know?
Because I think about it with like Worlds, sorry Sarah, like Worlds this year, like you had to be on round 7 day 1, right? Like of all the stress that you went through, that you chronologue, through your entire video of how much stress it was to get that 6 together. And of course it's the most important match of the year, and it's you and Shi Liang, and then like, you had to wait to that last second. And my other thought of that is the redemption of Farigiraf from just a few months ago, right? Because Farigiraf was the last mon added to your 6 in Yokohama, to now you win the regional with Farigiraf. That's a 0 to hero. Like, Farigiraf's now 25%, meta share Pokemon. Like, that's quite the glow up for the giraffe.
Absolutely. Sierra, did you have something you wanted to say before I answer that?
It was just like I was going to say real fast to clarify for yourself and anyone watching, it's not an absolute that we have to pull X zeros. It's just like 99% of the time it's how it's going to go. I think there was a match over Charlotte. We were considering it pulling at an X1, but it didn't ultimately. But just there is the chance. It's just not likely. And we'll probably never pull you at an X1 unless it's Worlds, because then it's the Ayo or... bias towards Wolf,
gotta be careful.
So you will never probably be pulled at an X1, don't worry.
That's good to know. Okay, yeah, that definitely makes sense. I mean, I think that like, Worlds this year, obviously the worst thing about losing on stream at an elimination match is that like, I mean, there's a lot of bad things about it, but having to watch it back, I guess you don't have to, but like watching the match back and see, like, when I like having to watch back the set I lost at Worlds was really difficult because I just saw so many mistakes. Like, I saw so many ways I could have won the game, and like, just like not like having to watch yourself make the same mistake over and over and over again, just like, I don't know, it's tough. But it's also like, it's high reward too, right? Where when you do get those big wins on stream, right, they feel so good. Like they feel just like being able to go back and say like, oh my god, there was like so much on the line here, and like I clutched out and I won. Like, that's a great feeling. So I kind of feel like, I mean, obviously it sucks, and last year was especially kind of rough, but I mean, like it's just part of the game. And Farigiraf, it's actually 3rd time's the charm, because it's the same set that Aaron and I brought to Fort Wayne Regionals, funnily enough. It's the same Hyper Voice, Psychic, Protect, Trick Room, same set as Worlds, same set as Fort Wayne Regionals. Neither of them worked, and I was telling Aaron going into the event, I was like, dude, Farigiraf is really strong. It's like, it feels great. And he was like, dude, it's like Charlie Brown and Lucy with the football. Like, every time we're like, this is the one, and then Lucy, Ting Lu pulls it away, and then Urshifu Dark pulls it away. But this time, my Farigiraf was nicknamed Diamonds Please. Nicknamed Diamonds Please, because the meme of the guy who like is digging for diamonds and he's like turning around and walking up, and the guy below is still digging. I was like, Aaron, this is you and me. Like, you're the guy who gave up. I'm gonna hit diamonds this time for sure. So yeah, I'm really happy to have done it with Farigiraf, and it is such a good Pokemon. I mean, Armor Tail is just absurdly broken, just like a crazy ability. So it was the MVP. I brought it to every single game that weekend except for 2 in my top 8 set. But other than that, I brought it every single game.
It's kind of funny because I was a giraffe believer. Don't worry. I sat here with Joe Brown and Alex Underhill, and I was like, what percentage you think Farigiraf going to be on day 2? And they both laughed at me.
We did.
What? Farigiraf is so good.
Yep. I was right ultimately in the end, but it is what it is. It's still doing okay. So
it's the most 7th most popular Pokemon in Knoxville. It's doing more than okay.
It's pogging out.
What about the other giraffe though? What are your thoughts on Raging Bolt?
I think it's good. That thing is really good.
Because your friend Dwee Ha on broadcast multiple times called it Raging Mid and said Raging Bolt is bad. But it's won 2 regionals. So how can I combat Dwee's opinion on his Raging Mid? What can I say to him?
Have you seen the stats? That thing has some of the best stats. Like I've seen it in a long time. Its HP is ridiculous. Its special attack is absurd, and its defenses are good, and it's not even that slow. It has, like, when I look at that thing's stats, I'm like, and it has a signature electric type sucker punch. Like, that is ridiculous. Like, it is so good, and it has so many items that it works with, like safety goggles, assault vest, like, obviously, but then like booster energy and magnet, and like there's probably like leftovers, calm mind, like citrus berry. Like, there are so many sets that work on the thing. It's really, really good, I think.
The assault vest Electro Web snarl set is dirty.
Brutal. Just brutal. Yeah. I was a little worried even because, like, so going into Charlotte, the more popular version was the Calm Mind set, and Terra Fairy Farigiraf hard walls Calm Mind Raging Bolt because Armor Tail shuts down Thunderclap, and then Dragon Pulse your fairy types you're immune. So I had a lot of practice games where like they would like set up Raging Bolt to like plus 4 or whatever, and I'd stick Fluttermane Farigiraf on the field and just ignore it and play 2 versus 1 the whole game.
Oh wait, speaking of Calm Mind, on your Calm Mind Fluttermane, was that like an intentional big like 5-head play so that like you could Calm Mind, and then if they bring the sun somehow, then like you get a special attack boost instead of speed?
I'm really impressed. I didn't think people knew about that mechanic. No. Calm Mind was really important. So the mechanic is,
this was a Len thing. This wasn't me. Len is the one that came up with this.
Okay, yeah. So this is really cool where basically booster energy Fluttermane, if it's like booster energy raises the highest stat. So my Fluttermane is speed booster. However, if sun is up, then the booster energy won't activate because the sun will activate photosynthesis instead. So if you Calm Mind with Fluttermane while the sun is up and then the sun ends, booster energy will activate. But now, because of the Calm Mind, your special attack is higher than your speed, and so you get a special attack boost. I used this to beat Stefan Mott in the round 5 of, or maybe 6 of day 1. Or Stefan, sorry. Yeah, no, it's a really niche mechanic. No, Calm Mind Fluttermane was really good. It was because without it, I would have no matchup for Archaludon. Because those teams often use Archaludon, Amoonguss, Incineroar, and what you can do is use your Fluttermane, Rillaboom, Incineroar with Terra Grass to have 3 Spore Immunes, and then you fake out the partner and like Calm Mind. And then with Calm Mind, you're like not that weak to Archaludon anymore, and you can like use knockoff or keep going for Calm Mind. So it has used in other matchups as well. I brought in it, like, it was maybe my least brought mod of the tournament, but I did bring in a fair bit. It won me my top 8 set against Neil VGC. So it's definitely, it's like, and it also is like, it's a cool mon because it like is like the ultimate Fluttermane counter because you're always faster. You never die even to spec Shadow Ball after a Calm Mind, and then you always KO opposing Fluttermane after a Calm Mind with Shadow Ball. So like normally you have to like play these stupid speed mini games and like call if they're going to tear us, you should Moonblast, or they're not going to tear us, you should Shadow Ball, and then vice versa. But with my set, you didn't have to worry about any of that. So against teams that like you could slow down with the double fake out plus Calm Mind where you could buy a turn, it became super threatening. And you could also just use it as like an offensive speed boosting Fluttermane where like you didn't go for Calm Mind and you're not OHKOing anything, but you're comboing, you're shipping down things, right? You're hitting things like Chen Pao and Dragonite, and Raging Bolt and Roaring Moon for good damage. So it was a really good set, honestly.
No, honestly, my biggest thing is going back and forth with the Flutter, whether I wanted the special attack boosting or the speed boosting, because whatever one you don't have feels like the one you should have.
Calm Mind was cool because you got both the speed boost and the offensive boost, so you kind of didn't have to compromise.
I know, that's so good. That's so good. But we are chugging along in the episode, so jump around unless there's anything else you're like dying to say. I think it's about time for our question of the week.
I get to clip that Raging Bolt answer and send it directly to Dwee. I think
I'm sorry, Dwee, I love you.
I've come out on top in this moment, so I'm all good.
Perfect. All right. So our question of the week for this week, this is coming from Leafy Arrow. It was actually asked last week, but we've kept this because we really like this question. So it's a good one. With the Indigo Disc being in Unova and people wanting Gen 5 remakes, also it's kind of about the cycle of that. We're probably about due for them. Which Pokemon would you give an Unovan regional form to?
Oh, so a non-Unova native Pokemon?
And then make it a Unova kind of thing.
Oh, probably Executor. Need more Executor forms.
What, do you just make it a pine tree?
It's like Empire State Building or something.
Oh yeah. Unova's New York. Wait, okay.
You could do that with Duraludon instead of just like regular building. It's now like
it's just
That's actually really funny. Yeah. No, I would say. I mean, I don't know. I would do Executor probably. Make it a tree in Central Park.
Oh, that could work. Yeah.
Okay. I feel like offhand. So when I think of Unova, I'm thinking of the fact that, this is, New York kind of based. We got the Americanized, we got the ice cream, all of that. You could do like a Poltergeist, but it's like an iced matcha version from Starbucks, with the sweetener.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like ice water or what ice fire?
It's like an ice grass or something, like ice ghost, and it's the iced form, right?
That's cool.
And Uven Senesha, and it's just an iced matcha.
Wait, I changed my mind. I want to do streetwear Hitmontop. I want to do hype beast Hitmontop.
Oh, that is a great idea.
Oh wait, but I think Hitmontop's based on Brazilian.
This is the Unovan Hitmontop.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That's how you do it.
He's walking around with a boombox and he's still bobbing side to side.
He's a hype beast. He goes to what's the brand? Supreme.
Yeah. Supreme Hitmontop. Oh god, that'd be so good. For me, my answer, which I don't think we've ever done a regional variant of a legendary yet. I don't think that's happened. No. Oh, that's right. That's right.
Good. Yeah, Zapdos, Articuno,
I totally forgot.
Moltres.
Yeah. So okay, so I'm not breaking the mold. That's good, because at first I thought, if they don't ever do it, then won't do it. I would like a Unovan Heatran, because I didn't. For the longest time, I didn't know Heatran wasn't Gen 5 to begin with. I just did it for a long time. I thought he was, but he's actually Gen 4. And my thoughts is we make Unovan Heatran a ground fairy type, because we don't have that typing. So you keep the regular Heatran has the unique Fire Steel as the only Fire Steel Pokemon, and then Unovan Heatran would be ground fairy as the only ground fairy type.
That's cool.
What would it look like, though?
Him Flash Fire still, maybe. Oh, what if you give him what's the worm's ability? Earth Eater.
I knew exactly what you were gonna say.
Yeah, that'd be so good.
What is he gonna look like, though? That's like the designs like half the battle.
He could look like a construction guy, like with the drill thing, but he's like wearing a pink outfit. So you got ground, but then pink for fairy.
Wouldn't you do that?
He's got a hard hat on Heatran.
I was gonna say you could do like a Novan Girder, but Girder's originally Gen 5, isn't it? So
yeah, when you said Unova, I was thinking, I love Cofagrigus. Let's get another Cofagrigus, but it's already Gen 5.
Already,
Gen 5. I feel it'll be interesting. I feel like at this point we do have regional forums, so like every new region we're kind of sending out. So Novan regional forums be interesting. Pokemon Day's coming up in like 3 weeks. Yeah, so I don't know.
What if we get Revavroom as a yellow taxi cab?
Oh, that'd be cool. But Revavroom is so bad. We need to have Mega Revavroom.
Make him good.
I'm so bummed because the typing is cool. It sucks. I'm bummed about Revavroom.
They can do a better Revavroom with the Unovan taxi one.
The thing is that the stats just aren't like the thing about the regional forms is like, ooh, like we fixed Dugtrio, and then it has the same base stat total, and you're like, you didn't fix. Well, I can't say that word.
Yeah.
Anything.
It's not the worst word that's been dropped here. Don't worry.
No, I'm not going to challenge that record.
I appreciate that. But Leafy Arrow, thank you for the question. As we wrap this up, Wolf, thank you so much for your time. It has been a blast. There's been a lot of really cool insight here. So I'm definitely excited for people to be able to listen. Before we let you go, though, you have any final words? Normally you would say to let people know where to find you. You can also say that, though I think they might already know the answer to that one.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for listening. If you listen to me talk for 2 hours, I'm sorry. I mean, thanks. But yeah, thanks to Sierra and Joe for having me. I think it's great to have more like VGC content in the space. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it for me. I'm really sweaty. I'm gonna go take a shower.
And check out the event this weekend, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you're in New York and I didn't know when this was going live. When
it goes Thursdays at
tomorrow.
Oh, quick turnaround.
Yes.
Yeah, if you're in New York and you want to come to Brookland on Saturday for the after party, It'll be fun. I'll be there. I think we're raffling off a battle, so against the gym team. So yeah, should be fun.
I might be showing up. I have a ticket. I have a spot. At least the after party and all that. But it's Akarchi's birthday too, so we're gonna.
Yeah, I mean that absolutely takes priority. Do not stress them out of it.
So I'll maybe see you there. But
fingers crossed.
But thank you so much for anyone who is listening. Thanks again for making it to this point. Definitely do appreciate it. Everyone, if you are going to be going out to New York, if you have any VGC stuff happening up, of course, there's a lot of locals happening. Safe travels too, though. And of course, thank you for listening to another episode of OHKO. We'll see you in the Discord, and we'll see you next week.